Seoul Station's Necromancer Chapter 21 to 3-star Dungeon. TLN, thank Victor, DMW, and James, ELQ, for donation. I really appreciate it. This chapter will count towards next week's regular chapter count. Alquinus will be out Sunday or Monday. Please turn off the ad blockers if you're able to. Thank you Tilda. Hyung Nim. I'm over here. The next day morning Sungu was waiting in front of Woojin's house on the appointed time. Whose car is this? It is my mother's car. She doesn't use it a lot, so I usually use it. Woojin nodded his head as he looked at the white Matiz. I guess it was better than not having a car. Why are the windows open? The AC is broken. Quote. It was almost the end of summer, so the morning was a bit chilly. It didn't matter if they didn't have an AC. Woojin tilted his head in confusion when he saw Sungu, who was putting on his seatbelt. It's your first day as a servant, so why are you in such a good mood? Ha. Isn't there different degrees of being a servant? Woojin grinned as he asked a question. You said we are going to a 3-star dungeon today. Yes. What comes out over there? Rakui comes out. TLN, Bakui is cockroach in Korean. The author basically switched B with an R. Rakwis were basically large cockroaches. That's it. It wasn't as if the drop rate for the bloodstones were any better, but there was a large population of this monster in this dungeon. This is why this dungeon contained a lot of bloodstones. Sungu gave a briefing about the dungeon, while he drove. The Maebongsten's third exit dungeon has a maximum limit of 10 party members, and the entrance fee is $300. It's damn expensive. If one person wanted to use the dungeon, then one would have to pay $3,000 for the entrance fee. It can't be helped. Moreover, there are a lot of them, and the return stone doesn't drop until all of the Rakwis are killed. Normally, it takes around 2 hours to attack this dungeon. If one is unlucky, it takes 3 hours. Woojin nodded his head. You found a dungeon to my exact requirement. The Maebong Station's third exit was chosen as their next target, but it wasn't Sungu's idea. Woojin ordered him to find a dungeon that fit a single criteria. Numerous monsters had to be summoned. He was told to search for a dungeon based on the monster regeneration rate instead of profit. He felt doubt, but he had worked hard to find it. Amongst all of the 3-star dungeons, this place regenerated the most monsters. There were way less cars on the road compared to Woojin's memory. It reminded him of the traffic he saw on the holidays. As expected, a parking lot was provided near the vicinity of the subway station. TLN, Koreans don't get a lot of vacations, so they all head out to beach, mountain on the holidays. Therefore, you see less traffic in the city during holidays. The biggest change that happened to Seoul in the past 5 years was the subway stations. It used to be a method of travel one used to get to work, but now it became a place of work. Dungeon businesses brought in the biggest revenue for Seoul. Even the parking fee is damn expensive. Sungu laughed lightly when he heard Woojin's complaint. I think you'll be very surprised once you balance your account after attacking this dungeon. There is a vast difference between a 2-star and a 3-star dungeon. Well, we'll know once we get there. Money was important to Woojin. He needed a big house, so he could live with his family. At the very least, he wanted to be able to sleep in a different room where he could fall asleep in a defenseless state. It was a dungeon where the profit was great, so the entrance fee was expensive, and there were many people in queue. One could only make appointments for 4-star dungeons or higher. They also restricted the roused, who were below rank D, from even attempting the 4-star dungeon. A mule like Sungu could probably squeeze in, but a rank D roused won't even be able to become a leader for a party when attempting a 4-star dungeon. Until the 3-star dungeons, there were no restriction. One didn't need to make an appointment. The order of the dungeon attempt was basically a first-come, first-served basis. This was why the queue time was longer compared to the time it took to complete 1-star or 2-star dungeons. However, it wasn't so for this 3-star dungeon. They had come early in the morning, so there were only 2 teams in front of them. Even if everyone took 2 hours, they would have to wait 4 hours. Hyung Nim should go rest in a cafe then return later. One of the main duty of a manager was staying in line as a proxy. Woojin looked around the surrounding, and he could see cafes and other convenient facilities. It made him doubt whether the development area around the subway station was really dangerous. It seemed the resident area moved farther away, but the commercial facilities seemed more developed here. Moreover, the dungeon was always open. The roused converged here 24/7 to attack the dungeon. Of course, a location where a lot of people gathered would flourish. It's okay. I'll wait with you. I'm moved, Hyung Nim. Sungu's flattery came out almost automatically. He had also studied on his own, so he could talk continuously about what he knew about the roused, their society, and the different types of dungeons. He didn't want Woojin to get bored. Phew, Pangya. Woojin found out why the Crazy Red was a popular smartphone amongst the roused. The sturdiness of its build didn't even need to be explained. It was also able to run for half a month without one needing to charge it. The insane battery allowed one not to be bored during the downtimes. Woojin waited 5 hours to enter the dungeon. Woojin paid $12,000. He paid the cost for using the dungeon for 4 hours. Sungu looked at Woojin, and he energetically gave a fighting pose. A stocky guy like him was doing all he could act cute, and it made him look at Sungu with pity now. Hyung Nim. Fighting. You have to go too, you dork. I have to. Who's going to excavate the bloodstones? I'm moved, Hyung Nim. Sungu let out a soulless exclamation, then he quickly followed behind Woojin. I thought you purposely suggested to become my servant, so you could follow me around. Quote. When there was no answer, Woojin turned to look at him. Sungu had an expression of guilt. You were quite perceptive. It seemed flattery came naturally to him now. Woojin smirked. Dude. Do it in moderation. Moreover, just call me Hyung. Yes, Hyung. Life was a battlefield. Sunggu was at fault for overreacting and adding the extra zeros to $4,000. Woojin didn't feel the need to take back what he had offered. He wasn't Sunggu's parent or guardian. Free money was free money. However, if he still insisted on becoming his underling, he would repay him back the money he lost. As a necromancer who had reached the pinnacle, Woojin had at least that much generosity. Be a good guy. Do my biddings well. I'm not going to work you without giving any compensations. After we finish this dungeon, you can have 10% of the profit. It was a 9-to-1 ratio. It was an unreasonable number, but Sunggu's face was filled with joy. For him, the very act of attempting a 3-star dungeon was difficult. Even if it was only 10%, it would still be more than he could make from attacking 1-star dungeons several times. He would be able to get his hand on a large sum of money. Thank you very much, Hyung. Sunggu really felt thankful towards him. Woojin seemed to prefer solo play, but it seemed he would be able to enter with him. He would be able to be carried by Woojin as his manager. He'll be able to experience a 3-star dungeon and use his ability in relative safety. He'll probably be able to train and practice his ability. It might even evolve. Sunggu was aiming to become a high-ranked roused, so this was opportunity of a lifetime. Woojin knew all about this, yet he acted like he had been fooled, so Sunggu felt thankful towards him. Let's go. Time is gold. Yes, sir. Woojin was thankful towards Sunggu, who had become a servant for just $4,000. Asterisk. Level up. The moment Woojin gained another level, he shook his head in a fierce manner. There are frighteningly a lot of them. The floor was jam-packed with Rakui corpses. These bastards barreled towards any life form in their vicinity. They had the tendency of using their number as an advantage. One could build a solid defense against them, or one could kill them faster than they could gather. These were the only methods of dealing with them. Woojin's method was to use both. You dare use your number against me? Kekeke. He fought number with number. Woojin was surrounded by 19 skeleton soldiers. This was possible, because every time he leveled up he put all his stat points into control. Woojin used his search magic. When he felt magic within the Rakui's corpses, he sprayed red paint on them. There were so many of them that it took a lot of time to tag them with paint. While he was doing this, Sunggu came down the stairs. Hyung him. I've excavated them all. Sunggu was hauling a bag as he descended, and he was soaked in sweat. He hadn't even used a single fireball since he had entered the dungeon. The only thing he did was to excavate the bloodstones from the field of corpses left behind by Woojin. Woojin picked out which monsters had bloodstones, so he didn't have to open up an empty corpse. However, there were still too many of them. Woojin's hunting speed was so fast that Sunggu fell behind even though he only had to extract the bloodstones. Ah. You've done well. Now keep up the good work. Huck. Sunggu saw the terrible spectacle created by Woojin on the last floor. He sucked in a sharp breath. At a glance, he could see a couple hundred corpses. Amongst all of them, there were over 60 corpses tagged with spray paint. How much money is this? The drop rate couldn't be compared to the 2-star dungeons. Sunggu put down the full bag, then he took out a new bag. I guess I'll take a little break. Woojin freed himself from the field of corpses, then he sat on bench. The return stone would come out from the body of the last Rakui he killed. While Sunggu excavated the bloodstones, he sat on one side as he opened his character window. He put all the bonus points he earned from the level ups to control. The number reached 24. He could summon 5 additional skeleton soldiers. I'm level 6 now. Woojin looked through all the skills he could learn at LVL 6. He was able to learn low-ranked attack spells like making a small flame or a fist made out of water. Everything else had a class restriction. Woojin purchased all the important magics under the low-ranked magic. The cost was between 10 to 30 achievement points each. These weak magics were progressively unusable against the monsters he would face, but these magics weren't only used in hunting monsters. They had many practical uses in real life, so he purchased and learned them. This cost 200 points. Less than skeleton magician summon greater than. Restriction, level 10, magic 20. Corpses or bones are used as sacrifice to summon, strength 5, agility 5, health 5, magic 5, skeleton magician. Range is increased when strength increases. Shooting rate is increased when agility increases. Attack power is increased as magic is increased. Magic consumption, 1, required control, 1. Every Rakui gave him 3 achievement points. There were too many Rakuis, so he had a lot of achievement points to spare. He was able to buy skill books, but he couldn't learn it since they had level restrictions. From level 1 to level 9, one didn't have a class. The low-ranked skills learned during this period didn't have any class restrictions, and most of them could be purchased with relatively low achievement points. However, once one reaches level 10, one would develop a class, and most of the skills became expensive. Now that I think about it, I should work on my stats a little bit. There were a couple ways to raise one stat. When one level up, one gets bonus stats, and as the name indicates it was a bonus. There were 2 other methods if one excluded the level up. First method was to train repeatedly to increase one stat. However, this method wasn't used often since the increase was minimal compared to the time spent. If one did it without having much expectation, then one could increase one stat at a time. The second method was to use drugs. There were reinforcement drugs that were able to give a temporary stat boost, but there were also magic medicines that could permanently increase certain stats. Woojin frowned as he searched through the achievement points door. There were reinforcement drugs that gave +1 stat points, but they cost 2,000 points. It was too expensive for him to purchase it for consumption. However, it wasn't as if he didn't gain anything. Less than recipe, orc tendon soup greater than. Ingredient, Orc Tendon 3, Drabbit Tail 5, Rat Fang 2. Effect, Strength plus 2. He thought he did pretty well by using 150 of his achievement points to purchase this recipe. The composition method was simple. He just had to use his advanced skill, combination box. It is all done, Hyung Nim. I also found the return stone. Woojin grinned as he looked at the fat bags filled with bloodstones. At the very least, there were about 5 times more bloodstones compared to the previous 2-star dungeon. Also, didn't Sungu say the bloodstones became denser and more expensive as the dungeon's rank increased? How many minutes had passed? It's been 27 minutes. Woojin stood up as he laughed. We'll run it 7 more times. Hurry up, and gather everything. Huck. I understand. The skeleton soldiers approached them, and they picked up the bags. Woojin and Sungu wanted to save time, so they practically ran towards the entrance. The public employee assigned to this place by the Dungeon Management Bureau was surprised when they came out much earlier than expected. When 2 rank F roused attempted the 3-star dungeon that had a maximum capacity of 10 party members, he thought their actions were ill-advised. However, it seemed he was wrong. Even if you cleared it before the time ran out, we won't refund the entrance fee. Woojin smirked at the public employee's words. I'm going to keep attempting the dungeon within the time limit, so don't worry about it. What? I don't have time, so don't ask me any questions. Woojin and Sungu grabbed the bags, then they ran towards the Bloodstone exchange store. They converted it all to cash. $54,300. He used simple calculations to determine he could earn almost $400,000 in a day. Sungu would receive 10% of that figure, so he had an expression of disbelief on his face. $5,430. This was the money he had earned in 30 minutes. If one joined a full normal party attacking a 3-star dungeon, one share of the profit would be equivalent to this. However, Sungu wasn't skilled enough to attempt a 3-star or even a 2-star dungeon. Jackpot, Hyung Nim. You are calling me Hyung Nim again. Hyung Nim is too great. I wouldn't dare call you Hyung. Woojin smirked at his silly words. We still have 7 runs left. If they went in 7 more times, then his share would be around $40,000. He had diligently went around 1-star dungeons for 2 whole months, yet he only made $30,000. Now he would make $40,000 in a day. Run. Yes, sir. Sungu and Woojin quickly ran towards the dungeon. Seoul Station's Necromancer Chapter 22, Dual Class. TLN, I was able to get into a translating groove yesterday, so here's another regular chapter. This will probably be the last release this week unless there's a sponsored CH. Next week will probably be Dragon Macon and either ELQ, SSN. I'm also pondering whether I should start another project. Was the alternating 2 novels each week an unpleasant reading experience? Let me know. I appreciate any input. Please turn off your ad blockers if you're able to. Thanks Tilda. Huck. Do you think we can rest a little bit, Hyung Nim? For the most part, Woojin didn't directly participate in battle. The Rakwas were considered to be a 3-star monster, because there were frighteningly a lot of them. It was so bad that a fight with the Rakwas wasn't considered to be a fight against a monster. It was a fight against oneself. Everything ended the moment one became tired. The skeleton soldiers never got tired, and he just had to summon a new one when one was destroyed. Moreover, the skeleton soldier's appearance had gone through a change. The skeleton soldier's skill level had risen from 1 to 10 and they had evolved. The skeleton soldier were made out of bones, so its emaciated body looked quite brittle. However, they now wore shoulder and chest armor. They also carried a small shield on one hand. The knives still looked very dull, but they had become larger and more pointy. They also wore a helmet on their heads. As one uses more of one's skill, the skill level increases. It can also be raised using the help of an item, or one can invest one's bonus point into it. These were the only methods. His hunting speed was becoming faster, and he was having an easier time. The problem was Sungu's stamina. He was on the bloodstone duty for 3 hours, and he hadn't been able to take a single break. Woojin's hunting speed was so fast that Sungu didn't have time to take a break. Woojin had run out of spray paint, but it seemed he had learned a marking magic. He used it to mark the monsters containing the bloodstones. He kept showing his admiration as he watched Woojin's endless versatility. Eventually, Sungu couldn't help it as his stamina flagged. All right. Let's rest for a moment. Sungu let out a groan, and Woojin plopped himself on the floor. Sungu sat next to him, and he took out a bottle of water from his bag. He gave it to Woojin first. Sungu was drenched in sweat and he had a tired expression on his face. However, he still gave Woojin the water first. Woojin grinned. Dude. You're going to live a long life. What? I like the cut of your jib. Woojin drank a gulp of water, then he handed it to Sungu. Sungu kept gulping down the water like a man who had come across an oasis in the desert. Higher. It felt like the water was being absorbed into his bones. Sungu's body shook, then he relaxed. How much time do we have left? We have 1 hour and 12 minutes. As time passed, their pace had increased. They had already completed the dungeon 6 times before 3 hours had passed. The adjust amount is, I think it's over $300,000. We should almost have $400,000. The Bloodstone's exchange store took a fixed amount from the final figure to give a fee to the first roused, who defeated the dungeon. The association also took a portion, but the rest was automatically deposited into roused registration account. As Woojin looked to the knocked-down Sungu, he pondered over an idea. He would be able to purchase a decent house for Sewer and his mother with $300,000. Money was basically the means to an end. It was a tool to get what he wanted, but the money itself wasn't his goal. I'll give up on the bloodstones. Woojin stood up from his seat. Sunggu followed his example, and he also got up. Orc. Hey, Sunggu. Yes, Hyung-nim. The bloodstone we excavate from now on is all yours. What? I'll mark it for you, so do your best in excavating it. Hyung-nim. Keep up the good work. Woojin almost ran as he led the skeletons downstairs. Well, should I record my lap time? Kakeke. Sunggu blankly glanced down towards the stairway where Woojin had disappeared to. Hi, Hyung-nim. If he excavated all the bloodstones before Woojin could end his hunt, he would be able to make around $50,000. He didn't care about the price of his life right now. The amount of money he was able to make was contingent on how much he moved. He was tired for only a moment. Whoa! Before the marking magic could disappear, he hurriedly swung his short sword. After Sunggu entered the dungeon, he started moving like a madman. He tried to close the distance between Woojin, and he excavated the bloodstones from the marked Rakwi's corpses. He had repeated this action for several hours, so he had already become an expert in cracking open the Rakwi's head. However, Woojin's hunting speed was too fast. Sunggu was able to clear only one floor before Woojin was coming back up with the return stone. Ah, my money. When he thought about the marked Rakwi corpses below, he wanted to pound against the floor. However, he couldn't do anything about it. He followed Woojin out of the dungeon to enter it again. There was 20 minutes left before his 4 hour of using the dungeon came to an end. Before Woojin could step onto the last floor, he stopped walking. Less than level up, greater than. Less than you have reached level 10. You class is being sorted, greater than. Woojin was taken aback. He tilted his head in confusion. Class. Originally, one would have to choose one's class at level 10. He had chosen to become a Necromancer on planet Alphen. When he was transferred here, he had already chosen the Necromancer class. He thought hard as he looked at the window that popped up in front of his eyes. Less than your movement pattern is being analyzed, greater than. Less than your class is being selected, greater than. Less than magician greater than less than elementalist greater than less than warrior greater than less than priest greater than less than trapper greater than. Woojin frowned when an endless banquet of classes popped up. He had already experienced this when he reached level 10 on the Alphen planet. The problem was he already had a class. Does this mean I can have a dual class? He thought hard on it, but that was the only answer that came to him. Less than the warrior class was chosen, greater than. Less than for class designation reward, you will be given a warrior's weapon, greater than. Woojin let out a sigh. Doesn't this put me in a tough spot? His skills and stats were not connected to each other. He has some skills where he needed magic, and some skills required vitality. Necromancer was a class that specialized in magic and control. If he had become a magician, then there were a certain amount of overlap in skills. However, when one reaches level 10, one's class is determined by one's movement pattern. If he knew there was a dual class, then he would have only used magic from level 1. He wouldn't have swung his clawed hammer. Well, I can't do anything about it. He'll probably run out of stat points, but he had planned on using the bonus points to focus on his necromancy. The warrior class was just a throw-in. He decided to think of it like that. He'll just think of his main weapon as backup weapon. He'll have to do his best to raise his stat using liquid drugs or magic drugs. As he organized his thoughts, he quickly threw away any regret. The reward. Woojin immediately opened his inventory. He was curious as to what he received as bonus reward when his class was chosen. The warrior's bonus reward was a weapon. He also received a summoning demon for when he was a necromancer, and it was capable of growth. Ah, there are 2 of them. Less than warrior's bonus, warrior's weapon greater than. Less than necromancer's bonus, sealed demon stone, greater than. Woojin grinned. Dual class, I guess it isn't so bad. Woojin took out the warrior's bonus reward. Part. A blue box appeared. As the light dispersed, a rod was pushed towards him. It was curved like a cane. It looked to be a magician's staff, but the composition was very different from a normal staff. It's a steel pipe. The staff was made out of steel, and it looked like the steel claw hammer. The battles up until now must have influenced its appearance. Less than steel staff greater than. A warrior's weapon was basically one's best friend, and they're akin to one's life. The warrior's weapon grew alongside the user. It is always with you, and it is always ready to come out at your beck and call. Effect, strength +5, durability recovery, dispel state. Skill, summon, dispel. Woojin held the steel staff in one hand, and he thought about dispelling it. As soon as he thought about it, it disappeared. Summon. Part. It suddenly appeared in midair. Woojin grabbed it in his hand, and he had a satisfied smile on his face. This isn't so bad. He obtained a weapon he could pull out at any moment, so it was a good thing. Moreover, the weapon was able to evolve. There was an infinite possibility in how it would advance. It also didn't take up any space in his inventory, so it was great. Woojin's heart fluttered a little bit as he took out the sealed demon stone. I wonder which bastard is in here. He didn't know if he had be lucky or unlucky on the planet Alphen. He netted a succubus and she was of no help in battle. Still, he hadn't been bored since she liked to talk a lot. Part. The summoning stone disappeared, and a thick smoke rose up. The smoke coalesced into the shape of a small child. She was a cute girl with a black one-piece dress and she wore a hat with lace hanging off of it. Master. Ah! A small female child suddenly hugged him. He lifted the small demon off of him. You, Bibi. Yes, master. Where have you been? TLN, she's speaking in a very cutesy way. It'll be lost in translation. Wu Jin could only dumbly stare down at his low-ranked succubus, Bibi. He crouched to look Bibi in her eyes. What? Why did you show up? Heing. Master unsealed me right now. Haha. Wu Jin's head hurt from his troublesome thoughts. He clutched his head, and he pressed firmly on his temple. Then he asked Bibi a question. Did the dimensional travel bring you with me? No, you said you were sealed. I'm so happy I was able to meet Master again. Anyways, what is this smell? It smells like Tranet's minions. Bibi pointed towards the Raquis at the last floor. What? Tranet's minion. Tranet was the name of the demon, who had invaded the planet Alphen. Demon wasn't the right description. He was a calamity. They're letting out a similar smell. Bibi's words made his press hands against his temple again. Tranet's invasion reached Earth. This might be why the dungeons formed here. He had no way of knowing if it was true. He felt a strange sense of danger, and it got on his nerves. He had escaped hell, but the hell was trying to come here. If it is Janie's Nim, then he would know. Hey. Janie's. Sage Janie's. He was considered to be one of the top mages on the Alphen planet. After Tranet invasion, he had turned himself into a lich. He had become a lich, and he existed for 200 years as he lived alongside Alphen's history. Amongst the family he commanded, the best was of course the undead magician. Lich. He never thought he would hear that name again. Yes. He was in a sealed room with me. There was Ryong, Xing and even Kiba Nim. Also. Hey. Wait a moment. What is this sealed room? I'm not sure. It was like the summoning room except Master's voice didn't reach there. The summoning room was where Wu Jin's family gathered before they were summoned. It was like his inventory. It was a type of pocket dimension, and it was his family's paradise. Are you saying everyone is sealed? Yes. I was the very first one to hear Master's voice. Wu Jin finally understood the situation. His Necromancer class had transferred with him. His entire familiar beings had been sealed until he was able to call on them. He had to be LVL 80 to do the Lich summoning. It seemed the level restriction was the cause of his family being sealed. If Earth had been invaded by Tranet, he understood why the dungeons had formed here. At the same time, he felt a sense of crisis. It wasn't the time to leisurely kill the monsters to excavate the bloodstones. Wu Jin felt the need to level up faster. Hyung Nim. He heard a voice from upstairs. He turned to look at Bibi. You should go back in. Hying. I want to stay by Master's side. I'll call you again, so go back in. I understand. I'll be able to hear Master's voice inside the summoning room. Part. Bibi turned into a single strand of smoke as she disappeared. At the same time, Sunggu came running down the stairs. Ah. Did you hear a girl's voice right now, Hyung Nim? Ah. I didn't hear it. Ah. Why are you still here? Let's conclude our hunt today after we take care of the monsters down there. They would barely be able to do one more dungeon run, but Sunggu was as exhausted as he could be. So he readily nodded his head. I understand. Wu Jin had a complicated expression on his face as he dragged his skeleton troop down the stairs. Seoul Station's Necromancer Chapter 23, Hammer Guild. Chapter 23 Hammer Guild. TLN, this is a sponsored chapter. Thank you for the donation, Rene. I'll try to have you out tomorrow to clear the queue. Please turn off the ad blockers if you're able to. Thanks, Tilda. Jung Minchen was the team leader of the 4th support team of the Hammer Guild. The 4th support team managed any work related to dungeon equal to or below 3 stars. The team was also in charge of educating the new roused inducted into the guild, and they helped out with the training. After he got to work, he always hand-brewed his coffee. He was a coffee maniac. He started off the day leisurely as he drank a cup of coffee in his large office. This was an important ritual for him and it gave him joy. The 30 minutes after he got to work was his small time of happiness. His team members didn't bother him unless there was an important business. DDI. He was about to grind the coffee beans with his hand mill when the phone rang. He picked up the phone. This is 4th support team leader, Jung Minchen. Team L Dada. This is Heeman. Kim Heeman was part of the management staff he had deployed to the Maebong Station's 3rd exit. The Maebong Station's 3rd exit was taken by the Hammer Guild about a month ago. They were now in charge of managing the dungeon, where the Raquis spawned. Yeah. What's going on? These guys arrived at the dungeon this morning, and they reserved 4 hours before going in. There is something wrong with these guys. Did they die? It was common for the roused to meet an untimely death when they attempt a dungeon. No. They were able to safely clear it, but their clear time is abnormal. The first attempt took 30 minutes, but it is taking 11 minutes to clear the dungeon now. Huck. They just came out right now, and it took them 9 minutes 47 seconds. Hey. I won. Collect all the money. Minchen heard low voices in the background, and he already knew what Heeman was doing. Hey, what are you doing? Ah. We made a bet on whether they would be able to clear the dungeon in less than 10 minutes. Never mind about that. Why don't you look up these bastards? They said they were rank F, but I'm sure they're ranked higher. Something was most definitely off. This didn't make any sense. 2 ranked F roused was able to clear a dungeon spawning Raquis in less than 10 minutes. Keep your phone by your side, and wait for me. I'll call back after I look them up. First, when their reserved dungeon time comes to an end, try to detain them. Yes sir, team leader. Keep up the hard work. After Minchen ended his phone call, he logged onto the association site to look up their information. What? This guy registered yesterday. The other guy seems to have registered only 2 months ago. They were fledglings, yet they were clearing 3-star dungeons. Moreover, they were clearing it within 10 minutes. One is a Necromancer and the other is a Flame Magician. By looking at their specialty, one could roughly guess the style of their hunting method. It basically meant either there was a mistake when measuring their roused rank or they were intentionally hiding it. Anyways, it was obvious the two roused were well above rank F at the very least. They should be rank C. F. A roused exhibited a rank C ability from the beginning. Every single one of them matured into a high-ranked roused. It had been a long time since a promising roused had appeared. I must catch them. Young Minchin abandoned the coffee he loved, and he immediately left his office. As the full support team, their main job was to manage the dungeons equal to or below 3 stars, but it was also important to scout the roused using the dungeons. Minchin's car raced towards the Maebong station. After he roughly parked near the road, he headed towards the third exit. Kim Heeman was waiting for him, and he gave Minchin a greeting. Ah, Hyung Nim came by yourself. It's business hour right now. Ah cha-cha. Team leader. Hey. It's been about 8 minutes since they ended. They'll be out soon. By looking at the clear time, they still have time to go through the dungeon once more. They had reserved 4 hours, and they had 15 minutes left. They'll be out soon, so they might attempt the dungeon once more. These guys aren't playing around. They've already made over $300,000. Ah phew. If I was skilled, then I would do the dungeon runs like them. If a high-ranked roused team attacked a 3-star dungeon, of course it would be possible for them to clear it within 10 minutes. However, those high-ranked roused had no reason to attempt a lowly 3-star dungeon. If they were able to clear a higher-ranked dungeon, the $300,000 was chump change. The 3-star dungeon would basically be a repetitive labor. It was as simple as that. Either these bastards have incredible potential or they're criminals who are using fake identities. If they possessed some amazing roused ability that grew enough within few days to allow rank F to sweep through a 3-star dungeon, you had to get a hold of them. It was a different story if they were criminals with laundered identities. The supervision over the roused was very strict. It would be very hard to cover up one's identity to go through the roused registration again. Criminals wouldn't do such eye-catching deeds like this in the first place. Why aren't they coming out? It's about time they should be coming out. Woojin's party had already passed the 10-minute mark. Heeman was becoming restless when they didn't come out like usual. Dungeons were a place where one didn't know what was coming. Everything further than one's nose was an unknown. It wouldn't be strange for a high-ranked roused to die even in a low-ranked dungeon. It means this will be their last run. Heeman was restless for no reason, and he glanced at his watch. They had only 4 minutes left. There wasn't enough time left for them to attempt the dungeon one more time. Either this was their last run or they wouldn't be coming out forever. Fortunately, it wasn't the latter situation. Woojin came out with a complicated expression on his face, and Sungu seemed exhausted. We burned through it like white-hot fire. Sungu's 2 arms felt like it was about to be ripped off. However, he couldn't help but laugh when he thought about the bags filled with bloodstones on his back. The bloodstones were worth about $50,000, and it was all his. I made the right choice. He made a good choice by sticking to Woojin and becoming his manager. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. What are you doing? Go quickly settle our account. Yes, sir, Hyung Nim. The adjusted profit would all be going to Sungu this time, so Woojin didn't have to go with him. Sungu tried to quickly head towards the Bloodstone exchange store, but someone blocked his way. May I speak to both of you for a moment? Sungu didn't give a reply, and he cast a furtive glance towards Woojin. A flame magician with 2-month experience, and the necromancer on his second day. They were an odd combination. Moreover, the relationship between the two seemed more strange. I guess the person is the leader. Minchin approached Woojin to ask his request again. May I speak with you? No. I don't want to. The correspondence of his words with his action was right on point. Woojin pushed past Minchin, who was in his face. Minchin was taken aback, and he quickly got in Woojin's way again. Please. Please wait a moment. I just need a moment of your time. If you are planning to steal my time anyways, why are you asking politely? At the other's unexpected response, Minchin had 2 thoughts in his mind. What kind of crazy son of a bitch is this? He is straightforward. I have quickly given him the main points. The former was his emotional side speaking, and the latter was his logical side speaking. Mikan, who had climbed up the ranks to become the team leader of the full support team, preferred logic over emotion. I'll tell you my business first. I want to recruit you to our Hammer Guild. Minchin hurriedly put his hand into his suit's pocket to take out a business card, then he tried to hand one to Woojin. Woojin didn't even entertain the idea of taking the business card. He had heard a lot of information from Jaemin and Sungu, so he was well versed on this subject. I refuse. Woojin didn't even think for 1 second before he gave his answer. Minchin had to suppress himself from grumbling, and he was barely able to reply back. Well, it seems you don't know about the Hammer Guild yet. Isn't it one of the 3 great guilds of Korea? It seems you know much. I'm not in a good mood, so why don't you stop bothering me? Woojin's thought was on a razor edge as his mind was filled with thoughts about Tranit. He became irritated when this person started pestering him. He didn't want to speak to him, and it was about a subject he didn't want to talk about. Of course, he wasn't happy. Fortunately, Minchin was quick to pick up on others' mood. Well, it doesn't have to be now. At least give us a call once. Hammer Guild takes good care of the roused with skill. Woojin walked past Minchin after he glanced at the business card. Sungu, who was following after Woojin, stealthily read the face of Woojin. What a waste. What kind of an organization is the Hammer Guild? They were one of the 3 great guilds of Korea. They were a guild ranked within the top 20 even if one put them against the guilds of the world. They were a powerful guild, who possessed 2 rank aroused. 1/4 of the dungeons in Seoul were Hammer Guild properties. The guild was probably making an enormous amount of money just from the entrance fees. If one was noticed by such a guild, it guaranteed a fast advancement in one's status. Moreover, a member of the support team and the team leader was here to recruit him. This meant they were very interested in him. How could he kick away such an opportunity? Sunggu knew Woojin was in a foul mood. Money wasn't the only thing the guild possessed. They had numerous magic and artifact. Moreover, they had experience. Sunggu's goal was to increase his ability, and he wanted to advance in rank. As aroused, this opportunity was like a dream. Minchin didn't miss Sunggu's anxious reaction. Please talk it over carefully with your party member. Then please give us a call. Ah, yes. Sunggu sneakily took the team leader Young Minchin's business card. As he watched the two leave, Young Minchin put on a confident smile. When the two entered the Bloodstone exchange store, he swore as he frowned. What the fuck? There is a limit on how arrogant a person should be. You were right, team leader. The bastard isn't normal. Ah. He should be thankful just to be noticed. Even that should be too much for him. That's right. He has no idea how high the doorsteps to Hammer Guild is. Phew. Minchin took a couple deep breaths, then he let go of his anger. There were public employees from the management bureau present. There were also other roused and managers watching from the surrounding. If he had a temper tantrum, then it would be a bad look for him. Minchin approached the public employee. Are you going to send in your report? What? Of course, I have to give my report. Don't send in your report. Yes. Well, I'll do what you say. Two F-ranked roused cleared a 3-star dungeon in 10 minutes. This meant something must have gone wrong when they were assigning their ranks, so the employee had to send in a separate report. However, the public employee was a close friend of the Hammer Guild. The site employee Kim Heeman turned the public employee a long time ago. Please don't give the information to the other guilds. Yes. I'll do as you say. At the public employee's answer, Kim Heeman grabbed a hold of Young Minchin's arm. Geez, team leader. This isn't the first time I've done this. I'll go have some soju with that friend over there. Anyways, are you going to try to catch those two? Yes. You should return to the office for now. Go dig up some information on them. It seems those bastards aren't interested in guilds. Do they have enough worth for us to catch them? I don't care if they don't have any value. You have to catch them first. Have you never fished before? Fishing. If the lure is being pulled, then you reel it in. If it is a small fry, then you just throw it away. Aha. Anyways, go learn about them. The less people who know about them would be better for us. The information will be spread in an instant fry catching guys like them. However, he had to do his best to delay it as much as he can. During that time, it would be best if they entered into the Hammer Guild. If they poked around too much, then they would lose an excellent rouse to other guilds and it would be their loss. They're coming out. At Kim Heeman's words, he turned to look. Woojin and Sunggu was exiting the Bloodstone exchange store. Minchin and Heeman stood next to each other, then they looked at the two with a confident smile on their face. Asterisk. We earned a lot. Woojin looked at the final adjusted figure, and he felt a little bit relieved. With this much money, he wouldn't have any problem purchasing a house. This was the achievement of a roused, who had been registered for only 2 days. $380,000. This was the balance in Woojin's account. He already had $50,000 in there, and he had gained $330,000. Hyung Nim. I respect you. Sunggu had received his 10% cut, and Woojin allowed him to keep all the bloodstones he had excavated at the end. He had made $93,000. This large sum of money blew all the thoughts about all the money he lost out of his mind. He was once again surprised he had made so much money in one day. Let's go back to our neighborhood. Yes, sir. They headed toward the parking lot to find their car. When they were passing the parking fee window, Woojin grinned. I guess the parking fee really isn't that expensive. Didn't I tell you? Also, the 4-star dungeons will be very different. The drop rate for an artifact is quite high there. If he purchased a house, then his immediate need would be fulfilled. His immediate goal was not to gather money. He knew his goal had to be leveling up as fast as he could. Woojin's expression turned complicated again, and Sunggu threw out a question towards Woojin. Hyung Nim. Why did you refuse the guild's offer? Do you have any reasons? It's simple. Yes. I'm not accustomed to having someone above me. Quote. Woojin was a ruler. He wasn't accustomed to having someone above him. He actually felt repulsed by it. Why should he receive orders from someone else? How laughable. Sunggu saw Woojin's grin, and he quietly took out the business card from his pocket. Then he threw it out of the window. He was afraid what would happen to him if Woojin found out he took the business card. Bye-bye. Hammer Guild. Sunggu grabbed onto the handle as his eyes misted up a little bit. Seoul Station's Necromancer Chapter 24, Looking for a House. TLN, another sponsored chapter. Again, thank you for the donation, Rene. The queue is cleared. Please turn off the ad blockers if you're able to. Thank you and enjoy Tilda. Woojin arrived at Sadang at around 11 o'clock. He called his mother to see when she could get off. Yes, mother. I'll see you later. After ending a phone call, Woojin looked to Sunggu. We have nothing to do until 3 o'clock. Do you want to go eat something? I'll be honored. Hyung Nim. Dude. Stop overdoing it. Quote. Hey, I really am honored. Where should I take you? How about a taste makes me feel like I've returned to Earth? Quote. He was in trouble. He couldn't think of any witty words he could reply back with. Before the silence lingered, Sunggu was barely able to give an answer. Ha ha ha. Should I take you to an organic Korean restaurant? There is a place I know. Let's go there. Woojin looked out the window, and he pointed at a specific location. Sunggu rubbed his eyes when he saw it. Over there. Yeah. Kebab world. Sunggu berated himself inside. Now that I've touched some money I became wasteful. Hyungnim is still frugal. Woojin and Sunggu ordered what they wanted to eat after they parked in front of the kebab world. Woojin ordered tuna kebab, TLN, canned tuna, and ramen. He had a very blissful expression on his face as he savored the food. This is it. He thought about his old memories, and his third year in high school. This is what he had tasted at that time. The 20 years as a necromancer was bypassed, and he felt like the third-year high school student from Earth. Huru, TLN, noodle slurping SFX, Hyungnim. Which dungeon should I look up next? Is there something like a monster catalog out there? It would be better if there was a list where the 1-star and 2-star monsters are ordered by their level. Of course, it exists. Let's decide it after I see that. Yes, sir, I'll show it to you at the cafe after I organize the information. Woojin and Sunggu headed towards Angel, and they ordered some coffee. Sunggu glanced at Woojin before he spoke to the barista. Is there anything on the menu that represents the Earth's taste? Is there something that'll make one feel such a sensation? At Sunggu's question, the barista frowned as if he saw someone with a couple screws loose. Sunggu turned to look at Woojin, and even Woojin was looking at him strangely. You have a weird taste. I want a cafe mocha. Quote. After Woojin said those words, he went to take a seat. Sunggu's face turned red. I would like an Americano and a cafe mocha. Yes. That would be $10. Sunggu brought a vibrating coaster and he took a seat. Woojin slyly asked a question. The coffee price these days is nothing to scoff at. It's almost priced the same as lunch. Woojin looked around the cafe's interior. When he came here previously, he had left without ordering anything. He was surprised when the coffee was more expensive than he thought it would be. Soup and rice is $6. The price was almost the same as a coffee. It wasn't as if there weren't a lot of people here. This large cafe was half full. Woojin indirectly asked a question. How much would it cost to set up a store like this? A cafe? I'm not sure. It should be around $1 million. He didn't know how much the rent was, but this cafe was 3-story high. It was a large cafe. Sunggu was in the dark about such matters, so he guessed at the answer. It would be great if I could set one up for Mother. The coffee price was expensive, so he thought the business will do well. It looked to be less arduous than working at a restaurant. He made $300,000 today. He could make $1 million if he worked hard for 3 days. Woojin thought about it in a relaxed manner. If he purchased a house, then he didn't have anything else he wanted. He would continue to attack the dungeon to level up, and the money would gather by itself. The money itself was trivial. He just wondered if he should set up a store like this, so his mother could have something to occupy her time in relative comfort. Pew, wrong. Woojin sipped the sweet cafe mocha, and he focused on his phone game. While he was occupied, Segu brought up some data on his tablet PC. Hyungnim. I have it here. Let me see. How do I turn the page on this? It's the same as a smartphone, Hyungnim. Woojin dragged the window to the top of the screen, then he looked at the monster catalog. The rack was from the 3-star dungeon, and the monsters like Goblin and Kobold from the 2-star dungeons were also classified by the number of stars. Monsters with 1 to 3 stars were classified as low-ranked monsters. The monsters were classified as high-ranked starting from 4 stars. The most basic 4-star monster was a troll. Its movement was quick, and it had enough intelligence to use tools. Moreover, they had an abnormal regeneration ability. Still, they weren't that hard to deal with. I heard the 4-star dungeons and above looks a little bit different. Of course, I've personally never been to one. The 3-star dungeon kept the original appearance of a subway station. However, the 4-star dungeons were basically like stepping into a different world. The entrance just acted as a gate. Well, I'll know once I enter one. Woojin eyed all the 4-star level monsters. Then he weighed it against his own level. It'll be possible if they're at that level. There were easy monsters to deal with, but there were also difficult ones too. However, he felt like he would be able to take on monsters as high as 4 stars. If he wanted to level up, it would probably be better for him to attempt the higher-ranked dungeons early on rather than going for the low-ranked dungeons. So who assigns the stars? It is a measured value. What is being measured? The dungeon energy. There is such a thing. Yes. Every time a dungeon is reset, the dungeon energy can be measured. Teams read these estimated reports to decide if they should attempt a dungeon or not. Woojin nodded his head. The stars weren't really assigned to the monsters. It was the grade for the dungeons. The monsters were categorized depending on which ranked dungeons they spawned the most at. This is why it wasn't strange to see a 3-star monster, a hobgoblin, in a 2-star dungeon. First, I want to see and experience it. Find out more about the 4-star dungeons. We don't have to line up starting from the 4-star dungeons. We can make an appointment. I'll look up if there are any empty spots in the schedules. Woojin learned that the 4-star dungeons and above were field-type dungeons. Woojin spent the remaining time listening to Sunggu's various explanations. Woojin and Sunggu exited the cafe when the appointed time arrived. Hyungnim. I could take care of these small matters for you. No. My mother has to live in the house, so she should see it. Yes, Hyungnim. If you need anything, please give me a call. He gave a respectful bow. Woojin nodded his head as he saw Sunggu walk away. I've earned a pretty good servant. Sunggu sometimes overdid things, but he really liked the affable Sunggu. He headed towards Sungmi's restaurant with light steps. Sungmi was sitting on the counter, and she was immersed in her handphone game. Even though she was in the midst of setting a high score, she threw her phone down as she suddenly stood up. Moo, Opa. You came. Did you eat? Yeah. I ate. Do you want some coffee? No. I'm heading back out immediately. Where is my mother? Wait a moment. I'll call for her. Sungmi headed inside the kitchen, and she saw Lee Soo-gyong and the other kitchen ladies busily working since it was lunchtime. She was taking care of a stack of dirty dishes. Moo. Mother. Elder brother Woojin is here. Please hurry up and come out. TLN, lost in translation. But Sungmi is speaking to Woojin's mom as if she is her mother-in-law. Oh, okay. Ms. Sungmi. Let me finish this up. At Lee Soo-gyong's awkward exchange, her fellow kitchen ladies made a big fuss about it. Phew. Mrs. Lee must be very happy. Your son is making so much money that you're going to look for a house. The way he is making money is like that Yankee gentleman, Neil Gates. TLN, lol. I go. That's right. I've heard about him too. His name was Neil or something. I've heard he makes a lot of money. Your Woojin is like him. That's right. I'm so jealous. If my son was like Woojin, I would have immediately quit this job. Go. Hurry up and go. Your son is waiting for you. I still have to do my share before going. At her fellow kitchen ladies' compliments, Lee Jin-young finished washing the dishes with a shy smile on her face. Since she gained a dependable son, the restaurant work didn't feel arduous anymore. She'll come out after she finishes what she's doing. Opa should sit here. It won't be too long. Okay. Sungmi pulled a chair towards him, and he sat. When he saw Sungmi sit across from him, he asked her a question. What are you doing? Hey, I'm looking at Opa's face. Ooh. I feel a bit uncomfortable when something ugly looks at me. Sungmi's face remained gentle even when she heard Woojin's straightforward comment. Oh my. You are still so forceful. Phew. Go make me a cup of coffee. Yes, Opa. If Opa feels uncomfortable then I'll look at Opa sparingly. Now he remembered. He remembered the memories where Sungmi had clung onto him even though he said he didn't like her. While Woojin was drinking the mixed coffee Sungmi made, his mother came out. You are here, son. Behind Mrs. Lee Soo-gyong, the other kitchen ladies followed her out. They acted as if they had come to look at someone else's precious son. Their gazes made Woojin feel uncomfortable, so he let out a fake cough. Let's go. Okay. Why are we going to go look at houses when you don't have any money? With a quiet anticipation, his mother asked the question. Woojin suppressed a bitter laugh as he looked at his mother with teary eyes. Well, he guessed it would be okay to go along with this. What do you mean we don't have any money? This was deposited today. Woojin showed her the figure on his smartphone. Even though she was secretly filled with anticipation, Lee Soo-gyong was surprised. When he said he wanted to move to a different house, she thought he had obtained around $5,000. $300,000. At Lee Soo-gyong's stuttered words, Sungmi's eyes turned round, and she also checked the figure. She hadn't read it wrong. Jackpot. It's $380,000. The Roused are the best. The Roused made a lot of money. They had heard about how much money the Roused made, but they couldn't help but be surprised when they saw it with their own eyes. Woojin's mother, Lee Soo-gyong, was so surprised that she became tongue-tied. Mrs. Lee has an excellent son. In a single day, he was able to make couple $100,000. Hey go. Who cares about that Neil or whatever? She won't even have to envy Mansuk. Who the heck is Mansuk? You know about them. The person who sells gas to the snobby large neighborhood. I heard about him. Ms. Kim is so knowledgeable. Ho ho ho. Mrs. Lee has been holding back until now. You said he had come back after playing some game, and you were worried about him. Quitting your job is the least you can do. You could open up your own restaurant. If Mrs. Lee opens up a restaurant, then you can count on me. I'll go there to work for you. Lee Soo-gyong came to her senses when she heard her fellow employees prattle on. Woojin. Let's go see some houses. Woojin laughed when he looked at her. Woojin escorted his mother to look around several houses as a real estate agent guided them. His mother's had a blissful expression on her face as if she was in a dream, and she liked every house we went to. There were too many houses she liked, so she was having a hard time choosing one. These houses were much better than the one room, and they were even better than the house they had lived in before his disappearance. At the time, they wouldn't have been able to buy houses like these with just $300,000. As they were choosing a house, they came across a problem from an unexpected place. I don't like this house. The kindergarten had ended, so Sua had come to join in their search for a house. However, she acted like a petulant kid as she threw a tantrum at every house they visited. Why don't you like this house, Sua? We can't have a dog in this house. Mom promised me. If we move to a new house, she'll let me have a dog. Moo. This kid. About a half a year ago, Sua wanted a dog. However, their residence was too small to have a dog, so Lee Soo-gyong had promised she would get Sua one the next time they moved. A long time had passed yet Sua remembered it. When she looked at Sua, she had on an obstinate face. Woojin thought Sua's antics were cute, so he let out a delighted laugh. Then he spoke to the real estate agent. I guess an apartment is out of the question. Can we only look at the houses? Of course. However, the price is a little, Well, let's see it first. Amongst a couple houses on the market, they were able to find a house where everyone liked it. Oh wow. This house is great. Sua jumped around in joy. It was a two-story house with a small backyard. After the Sadang Station's dungeon break, a new rural housing development had formed on the newly available land. When the monsters rampaged, many apartments had collapsed. So it was commonplace to prefer a single home near the stations. I'll buy this house. Wu Jin made a straightforward decision, but the real estate agent had a difficult expression on his face. This house was put on the market for a quick sale, so it is priced below the market price. However, it still costs $603,000. The price difference between what you had specified is quite large. It's okay. I'll sign the contract. Then let us return to the office. The real estate agent called the owner, so they would be able to meet each other at the office. Wu Jin gave a call to Sunggu. Hey, Sunggu. I'm trying to buy a house, but I'm a little bit short. Lend me some money. Opening square bracket ... closing square bracket. The worst sin is taking back something after you gave it to the other person. Well, Hyung Nim. I was about to buy something, and I'm about to sign a contract. Does that mean you don't want to lend me the money? No. It would be my honor to be able to lend my money to Hyung Nim. Wu Jin smirked. When we complete the next dungeon, I'll pay it back with interest. Thank you. Hyung Nim. He was able to solve the problem of the money shortage cleanly. Wu Jin headed towards the real agent's office. Seoul Station's Necromancer Chapter 25, Little Devil BB. TLN, this is a sponsored chapter. Thank you Andrew and John for the donation. I'll try to get the next chapter out tomorrow to clear the queue. There are more TLN than usual in this chapter. If you think a TLN is unnecessary then let me know in the comments section. I'll delete it. Please turn off the ad blockers if you're able to. Thank you and enjoy Tilda. They would move in a fortnight. The contract fee and the intermediate payment would be required on the day of the move. Therefore, Wu Jin didn't need to borrow Sunggu's money. Wu Jin had been summoned to the planet Alphen during his third year of high school. No real estate contracts existed on that side. The locations he traveled to and where he fell asleep for the day was his home. He lived like that for 20 years. He had never made such a trifling contract like this. This was why Wu Jin didn't know what the intermediate payment and contract fee was. While they were looking at the houses, the sun had long ago descended. They filled their hungry stomachs at a nearby restaurant, and Suo was already sleeping from exhaustion. He carried Suo back home, and he laid her down. Lee Soo-gyong had a disappointed expression since she didn't want to part from her son. Why don't you live with us until we move? No. However, we will have a place to live together soon. Wu Jin wanted to stay. He had looked forward to meeting his family for 20 years, so why wouldn't he want to? However, there were things he didn't want his family to see. This was why he was trying to buy a house as fast as he could. She couldn't force her uncomfortable son to sleep in the small house. She can keep him here. Alright. As soon as I quit working, I'll make some banchan for the dongseng you live with. TLN, banchan equals Korean side dish. Dongseng equals refer to younger sibling used in a general term to refer to Jaemin, gender neutral term. Ahem. It would build up my face a little bit. At her son's cheeky behavior, Lee Seung-yong was able to banish a little bit of her unease from her heart. The fact that her son had returned was like a dream. However, consecutive dreamlike events were continuing to unfold in front of her. I'll see you tomorrow. Please quit within couple days. If you are bored after sending Suo to kindergarten, then I'll set up a cafe for you. Moo, son. I'll be happy if I'm able to eat dinner with you and Suo every night. I feel the same way. Wu Jin stroked Suo's head as she slept. Then he stood up from where he sat. I'll see you tomorrow, mother. Okay. I'll see you tomorrow, son. Wu Jin was sorry to have to say goodbye. He headed towards Jaemin's house. Phew. Still, I've been fortunate. Wu Jin was harassed by an evil spirit every single night. This was why he couldn't sleep peacefully. He wanted to avoid it, but he couldn't since it was a curse. Fortunately, a path opened up for him where he would be able to have some relief from the pain. After walking for a while, Wu Jin turned into an unpopulated alleyway. Come out, BB. Whoosh. At Wu Jin's call, a wind seemed to pick up, and a black smoke started to clump together. The black smoke seemed to coalesce, then it scattered. This happened several times. The black smoke materialized, then it scattered into some unknown place. What the heck? Come out, BB. Whoosh. The black smoke disappeared deeper into the alleyway, then it started to materialize in front of Wu Jin again. However, it was much smaller in size than before. Nya. The appearance of BB wasn't that of a small young demon. She looked like a cat. A very small young kitten. What? What's wrong? Nya. I couldn't materialize my body. I had no choice, but to search for a small creature AOHNG. TLN, Korean SFX for cat is YAOHNG. Every time she ends a sentence with the second half of the cat SFX. Wu Jin pressed his hand firmly on his temple. Where is this place? I can't feel any of Tranet's influence AOHNG. Wu Jin picked up BB. Can you use your ability with that shape? Nyahing. Master is low level, so I am also low level AOHNG. I can only use my Nightmare Hong. Wu Jin's family also possessed levels. When Wu Jin had been transferred back, it seemed their levels were reset. BB was a low level succubus. However, it seemed her basic abilities like Nightmare wasn't tied to her materialized body. If you can use her then that will do. Even if BB leveled up, Wu Jin didn't really need her abilities that'll show up later. Nyahing. It smells nice here. It's the smell of peace. She was a demon yet it seemed she was wishing for peace. He couldn't keep a wry smile off of his house from her words. This might be to my advantage. There won't be any problem if you live with me like this. Is that so, Nyang? I can stay with Master instead of waiting in the summoning room, Nyang. Alright. But you can't speak. Nyahing. I know at least much Nyang. How would a cat be able to speak AOHNG? Bibi was quick on the uptake, so she'll be fine. Bibi was a big help when Woojin slept. Instead of suffering through the evil spirit's curse, he would rather have the nightmare. Was that too perverted? TLN, preferring one pain over another. Bibi was an important being to Woojin. If she was in her young demonic form, it would be a bit problematic if this situation was viewed through the morality of Earth. However, she looked like a cat now, so it wouldn't be a problem. No one would care if he slept with a cat by his side. Now that he thought about it, Suo wanted a dog. Hey, can you change into a dog? Nyang. The model for my materialization is already set, and I can't change it AOHNG. Well, she might also like a cat. Asterisk. After his tutoring school ended, Jaemin headed toward his home. Ah, Nuna. Please take care of yourself when you travel here. I'll meet you in front of my tutoring school. Today was Friday. His sister was coming home tomorrow. DDI Rory. When he opened the door, he instinctively put his guard up as he looked round his room. As expected, Woojin was sitting on the bed. He was watching the TV as he ate a tangerine. Ha ha ha. You are here. Even though Jaemin had appeared, Woojin's gaze was still fixed on the television. If someone saw this scene, it would look like Woojin had lived here for a year. No, he acted so naturally that some would mistake him for Jaemin's brother. Moreover, Woojin wasn't alone today. Hi, Hyung. What is that? Jaemin pointed towards the cat with a surprised expression on his face. His finger was shaking. $500 was too large a sum, so he couldn't call him a trespasser. However, he was living off of me, yet he brought home a pet. Ah, I picked her up on my way here. I'm going to keep her. Ha ha. It's a cat. The fur, the smell. Jaemin had a dejected expression on his face. He feebly took off his shoes, then he took off his bag. He opened the refrigerator, then he chugged down some water. This can't happen. His sister was coming tomorrow. His sister had provided this precious one room, so he would be able to focus entirely on his studies. He was already unhappy by the fact that a man was in his room, yet this person brought a pet without the owner's consent. His action had crossed the line this time. He had to regain his identity as the owner of this house. Jaemin placed the empty water cup on the dinner table. He brought it down hard enough that a TAHK, TLN, SFX was heard. Hyang. Ah. I placed some more Ren money on top of the dinner table. Ha ha. This is so funny. Quote. Woojin went back to watching the TV. Jaemin peeked inside the envelope on top of the dinner table. TH. 300. At the unexpected large sum of money, Jaemin's eyes turned round. How could he have so much money? Jaemin's gaze headed toward Woojin once more. Jaeyoon. Can you buy me this? Pooh hee hee. When he looked at Woojin, who was immersed in watching the TV, he looked like a poor neighborhood bum. Even though he was an unemployed Hyung, it seemed he had some money. He must have been born with a golden spoon. TLN, born into a rich family. No, how did such a wastrel of a golden spoon exist? Nya. The cat next to Woojin was eating the tangerine with him. Ah, the cat ate the tangerine. Why are you standing there like that? Come here and have some tangerine. It's really delicious. The planet Alphen only had apple trees. It didn't have any tangerine trees. Woojin had always liked tangerine, and quite a few places sold it on every street he visited. So he bought it whenever he saw the tangerines. Jaemin didn't say anything as he sat next to Woojin. Ah, this is so funny. The comedy program's sketch ended. Woojin finally looked away from the TV, then he turned to look at Jaemin. Jaemin. Why? Why the long face? Jaemin. Why does this Hyung enjoy life so much? It made Jaemin look like the abnormal one, since he lived with so much worry. Jaemin. Do you need spending money? Jaemin. Quote. Woojin took out his wallet. Jaemin took out his handphone when he saw the $50 in Woojin's hand. Then he started writing a message to his Nuna through KA Talk. TLN, Kakao Talk equals very popular Korean mobile messenger app, free text, call. Nuna. I think Nuna will have to sleep in a hotel tomorrow. Jaemin. Take this pocket money. Jaemin. TLN, he is speaking like this B. See, he is copying the punchline to the joke he heard on TV. Thank you. What is the cat's name? Hyung. It is quite beautiful. Jaemin's voice turned gentle like a spring weather melting snow. Asterisk. Weak. Sungwoo whistled. Even if he was standing still, his shoulders felt like it was about to dance by itself. He-ya. I can't believe this is my car. BMW 5 Series. He could have spent more, but he had thought about the entrance fee to the 4-star dungeon. He left enough cash in reserve. When he visited the sales office to sign the contract, he had been quite nervous. He was about to pay a lump sum for the contract, but Woojin had called him to borrow his money. It made him want to cry. Eventually he said to sign a contract on an installment plan for 60 months, and his car was delivered to him today. When the tinting was done, it was already 12 o'clock. Hee, vroom. TLN, this is what he named the car. Should we go on a drive? Hong Sungwoo, 21 years old. This was the first car he had purchased in his life, so his affection for the car was extraordinary. His car was much better than what his friends had. No, there weren't that many friends who even owned a car. Boom. The car's power and handle couldn't even be compared to the Matiz. It elevated Sungwoo's mood. He had returned home to eat lunch with his parents, and it was already 2 o'clock now. It was time to pick up Woojin. Shall we go full force? Woojin was a scary roused, who could extract $400,000 from the 3-star dungeon. Normally, the 3-star dungeon yielded around $50,000 per run. He wondered how much the 4-star dungeons would give. For Sunggu, Woojin was basically a lotto ticket for him. Opa bought a car. I'll go get you Tilda. Sunggu sang at top volume as he headed towards the Sedang station. Woojin received a call from Sunggu, and his eyes turned round when he went outside. Yeah. You bought this car. Haha. It troubled me that young Nim had to ride in the small Matiz. This is why I bought this car. Oh yeah. You don't have to lend me your money. What? I decided to settle the balance in a fortnight. Quote. He had signed a contract for a 60-month installed payment plan because of him. He could have told him a little bit sooner. That's too bad. If it is for Hyung Nim, it would be well worth it even if you spend my entire fortune. Woojin was used to Sunggu's brown nosing, so he let it flow over him as he looked at the car. Wow. This car is great. Woojin sat in the passenger seat. As if he was amazed by the car, he started touching every inch of the car's interior. Sunggu, who was the car's owner, looked on with nervousness. The oil from his hands. He couldn't say anything, and he put on a smile. However, his inside were burning to pitch black. Woojin still pressed against various parts of the car as if he was fascinated by it. No. Sunggu was letting out an anguished scream inside. However, Woojin's hand didn't stop as his eyes was filled with curiosity. What are you doing? Aren't you going to start the car? Yes. The car would eventually become dirty. New cars became used cars. Children became adults. This was the law of nature. Sunggu chanted a Buddhist prayer as he tried to take care of his mental health by himself. When is the appointment? It's 5 o'clock. He had already put down the appointment fee, so they could use the dungeon. They didn't have to go early to line up. They just had to make an appointment. It was a popular dungeon, so the entire week was packed with appointments. No one knew when the dungeon reset would happen, so they only took appointments for 1 week at a time. Where are we going this time? We are headed to the Guchun Station's 6th exit. It was near his high school. In the beginning, Woojin had gone into the Guchun Station's first exit by mistake. He grinned as he thought about it. The two rode the new car, and they headed towards Guchun. Seoul Station's Necromancer Chapter 26 to 4-star Dungeon. TLN, this is a sponsored chapter. Thank you for the donation, John. Queue is cleared. Please turn off the ad blockers if you're able to. Thanks and enjoy Tilda. Team Leader. These guys made an appointment to the Guchun Station's 6th exit. Which guild does the dungeon belong to? They're owned by the Warang Guild. Jung Minchen frowned. They're acting no better than poor noobs. Quote. It wasn't possible for an F-ranked roused to attempt a 4-star dungeon. How could they not know such a basic thing? They just blindly made an appointment. It seemed they were nothing more than amateurs. However, he hadn't verified their abilities himself, so it made him more curious. How much confidence do they have for them to attempt a 4-star dungeon with only the two of them? Do we have a 4-star dungeon near there? We do. It is the Chungsa Station's 11th exit. It's right next door. Is there an appointment around that time? It is scheduled for a training session for our new recruits. Tell them to go elsewhere. Empty the schedule over there. What? If you want to catch a fish, then one has to throw in the chum. The bait. He always talked about fishing. Kim Heeman grumbled inside, then he started modifying the schedule. You come with me to Guchun. Yes. Yes. TLN, lost in translation. Nay equals yes. Heeman changed it to nay. Soup. I'll go to the market. Prepare everything for me. Yes, yes. TLN, he changed nay to in way. Heeman replied in a playful manner. Minchen hit him as he got up. Heeman was an asshole, but he trusted Heeman the most on his team. He was quick on the uptake, and he took care of business fast. Asterisk. Woojin and Heeman reached the Guchun station at the appointed time. However, Woojin had bumped into a precarious situation. Aren't you only AF ranked roused? Why are you here at a 4-star dungeon? Moreover, there's only 2 of you. Didn't I say it was alright? I am very confident that we could do this. Still, you can't go in. You don't have to take any responsibility for what happens to us. Just let us in. If you want to suicide, then go to the Hangang River. Why are you doing this over here? No. The regulation says so. The bureau employee blocked his way, and he wasn't budging. Sunggu returned to Woojin with a hopeless expression on his face. Hyung Nim. I don't think we'll be able to go in. I'm sorry. I should have found out everything about this place. Sunggu blamed himself since he had been too excited about signing his car contract yesterday. His earnings had significantly increased, but that was only possible since Woojin had gave away his earnings. Well, we can't do anything about it. I'll cover the lost appointment fee. It cost him $2,000 just to make an appointment. The person in charge of the appointment never thought the 2 ranked F would try to raid this dungeon. The employee thought Sunggu was making an appointment at the behest of an organization. This was why he accepted the appointment request. This was a unique experience. I guess we'll have to write off today. I'll have to go to the bureau to renew my rank. See if there's a 3-star dungeon nearby. Yes, sir. Sunggu had an apologetic face. He was about to move quickly when it happened. Oh my. We meet again in such a place. Jung Minchen had a surprised expression on his face, and he approached Woojin and Sunggu. What a coincidence. I'm sorry, but what's going on? If it's possible, I would like to lend a hand. Sunggu told Minchen about their situation. Minchen put on his thinking face, then he secretly glanced at Woojin to see how he was reacting. Woojin could see through Young Minchin's intent, so he grinned. Coincidence. Bullshit. Woojin gestured with his chin towards Sunggu. It basically meant for Sunggu to talk. Sunggu gave a detailed explanation. So what if we do this? Our guild's dungeon is located at the next station. I'll let you use that place. Ah. Hi, Hyung Nim. Sunggu turned to look at Woojin, and he waited for Woojin to make a decision. Woojin nonchalantly asked a question. I'm sure you expect no return for the favor. Just a favorable impression toward us. Minchin put on a friendly smile. This caused Woojin to laugh with him. I'll use it with thanks. You are very straightforward. Minchin smiled as he looked at Woojin. His reaction was softer than yesterday. No, he might not be a psycho in the first place. Yesterday's reaction might be an exception to the norm. Ha. Follow me. Minchin yelled in delight inside his heart as he escorted Woojin and Sunggu. When they left, the dispatched employee of the Hwarang Guild quickly made a call. Team leader. Young Mikan came here not too long ago. He took 2 rank F roused away, and he treated them like royalty. What are you saying all of a sudden? Recently, 2 ranked F wanted to enter the 4-star dungeon. They were being unreasonable and argumentative. Do you remember the team leader from the Hammer Guild, who tried to act all elegant? He took the 2 rank F to somewhere else. No, he pretty much escorted him out. If that bastard Young Minchin moved, then something is fishy. Right. It seems those bastards have something up their sleeves. The F ranks tried to attempt a 4-star dungeon. First, let's end the call. I'll try to find out some information about them. Hwarang Guild's support team leader also started to get busy. The Guchun station and the Guchun City Hall station wasn't that far away. They walked for a short amount of time as they conversed, and they were able to arrive at their destination in no time. If you join our guild, you could have prevented such minor things from happening in advance. Moreover, you could raise your roused rank in a flash with us. Our guild is well known for giving a lot of support to our roused. During the brief walk, Minchin had repeated numerous selling points of the Hammer Guild. Woojin knew what was happening. This was the price for his favor. Woojin was expected to listen to him prattle on. So, he decided to just listen. Geez. That seems quite convenient. It really is convenient. If one needs money, then money is provided. If one needs an artifact, then an artifact will be given. You will be provided with any support you want. Quote. Woojin replied to humor him a little bit. The members of the Hammer Guild must really like it. Ha. Thank you for acknowledging our guild. He somewhat spoke the truth. We're already here. Please be at ease as you use this dungeon. You don't have to pay the fees for its use. Is that also a favor? Of course. The fees for the 4-star dungeons were known for being very high. However, he said he won't charge us at all, so it was a pretty significant favor. Woojin didn't hesitate as he agreed to it. I'll gratefully accept it. How about that public employee over there? I'll quickly work to adjust Woojin Nim and Sunggu Nim's ranks. Those are some welcoming words. At Woojin's answer, Minchin smiled inside. There were no favors without a string attached to it. No. Even if he didn't want something back, the favor he gave would put a favorable light in their heart for the Hammer Guild. If someone bought you a meal, then you'll naturally wonder if you have to buy the other person a meal the next time. It was human nature to feel this burden. At the very least, Woojin would think more highly of the Hammer Guild compared to the other guilds. When one builds a fire, one had to be sure to build a proper one. Please wait a moment. I've prepared a present for the 2 of you. Ooh. You also got us a present. Woojin didn't show any signs of refusing the present. Mikan yelled in delight inside his heart. As aroused, his potential ability was mind-boggling, but Woojin was still a 24-year-old cub. He could tell Woojin hadn't had much of a societal life. He unhesitatingly took everything just because it was given. Minchin was sure now. This opponent had basically climbed on top of his palms. Then please wait for a moment. Minchin went to the car he had parked nearby to pick up the present. While Minchin was doing this, Kim Heeman turned towards the 2. He tried to start a friendly conversation. Hee. Mr. Woojin seems very different from yesterday. What do you mean? Ooh. I was too scared to start a conversation with you. Woojin laughed at Heeman's brashness. His head was a mess yesterday, because he was thinking about Tranet. Yesterday I wasn't feeling so well. Hee. You must be a man who acts on his feelings. Now that I see you today, it seems you have a good personality. Do you want to have some soju after this ends? That'll be great. He'll welcome soju anytime. Heeman tactfully praised Woojin and Sunggu. He tried hard to match their moods. Sunggu could only shake his head when he saw them act like this. They were trying hard to fawn over Woojin, but would he actually join the guild? These guys are barking up the wrong tree. TSK. Sunggu felt sorry for Minchin and Heeman. They were purposefully trying to be on the same beat as Woojin. Woojin wasn't evil, but he didn't have a conscience. Sunggu thought his young Nim looked splendid when he acted that way. I'm getting bored waiting for him. Tell him to give me the present after I come back out. You want to do that? I'll see you later. We'll talk over some soju. Hee. I'll take you to a great place. Woojin and Sunggu quickly descended the stairway. We gave you plenty of time for your appointment. Fighting. Woojin grinned and he disappeared as he waved his hand. As he watched them disappear into the barrier, Kim Heeman smiled brightly, and he waved his hand. Suddenly, Heeman felt a terrifying sensation. His neck retreated into itself like a turtle, then he turned his head to his side. Wah, his heart. Team leader Young Minchin was frowning as he glared at Heeman. Hey. What the hell are you doing? I'm seeing him off. A vein popped out on Young Minchin's forehead. Didn't I say I'll go get the present? Ha. Weren't you going to wait for them to clear it before you were going to give it to them? Just give it to them when they come out. At Hemin's words, Young Minchen felt himself raise his hand in anger. He was barely able to hold himself back. He dropped the bag he brought on the floor. The large sports bag let out a thump as it fell onto the floor. It was quite heavy, so the impact ripped the zip open, and the content was revealed. There were water filters, first aid kit, cloth and a seeker. Moreover, it held a map with the location of the return stone, and a dungeon guide with the location of the enemy's position. A survival kit. The 1 to 3 star dungeons were low-level dungeons. The 4 to 6 star dungeons were high-rank dungeons. It wasn't simply about the classification of high rank and low rank. There was a fundamental difference in the structure of the dungeons. The present Young Minchen had prepared was none other than a survival kit. The F-ranked bastards came to attempt a high-ranked dungeon, but how much do you think they know about the high-ranked dungeons? That is. Hemin's face was turning pale. The recommended team composition for attacking a 4-star dungeon was to have a rank C team leader. The rest of the Rouse team had to be at least rank D. However, only 2 of them entered without any information about the dungeon. This isn't a favor anymore. We basically cornered them into the jaws of death. Quote. A 4-star dungeon with no information about it. It was a horrifying situation. Heman spoke carefully. Do you think they'll come back alive? They basically went into jungle bare-handed. Quote. Heman's face turned white. From the beginning, he should have said it was a survival kit instead of a present. Minchen and Heman didn't speak for a while. Excuse me, team leader. What if they do? What happens if they do come back alive? Well, they had gone to the jungle bare-handed. Moreover, if they return alive from a place crawling with monsters, and it was only the 2 of them instead of a team. At the very least, they will be rank B. Minchen's face turned dark as he spat out those words. Moreover, they will probably be filled with animosity. They won't have any goodwill towards our guild. They had cornered them into the jaws of death without giving them any proper information. No, he wouldn't be able to say anything if they accused him of pushing them in a trap after digging it. They would also be reprimanded from the Roused Affairs Bureau. On the surface, it looked like they had thrown 2 rank F Roused into a 4-star dungeon. Phew. Hurry up and tell them to change their Roused rank right now. Young Minchen's sigh made Heman more timid. Asterisk. Less than you have entered the Guchun City Hall Station's 11th exit. Greater than. Less than this dungeon has already been captured. The basic monsters will be summoned. Greater than. Woojin and Sungu steadily went down to the lower floors. Woojin defeated the monsters, and he searched for bloodstones. Then he marked the corpses with his marking magic. Sungu followed after him, and he cut open the monsters' corpses to bag the bloodstones. They had been nervous since this was a 4-star dungeon, but the monsters were much weaker than they had expected. It was on the same level as the monsters from the 2-star and 3-star dungeons. Are you really sure this is a 4-star dungeon? I'm not sure. He hadn't fought against the monsters, so he had no idea. Even the 2-star monsters had been a tough opponent for Sungu. Therefore, he couldn't tell the difference. Woojin said they were weak, so he just took Woojin's words at face value. Maybe this dungeon is more easier than the average dungeon. Well, who knows? Let's quickly dispatch them, then we can head out. Woojin cleared the lowest floor where the subway train would be parked, then he used his search magic. For the first time since he had entered the dungeons, Woojin was taken aback. What? The return stone isn't here. What? That can't be. Sungu stopped extracting the bloodstones. He approached Woojin with a worried expression on his face. Maybe my search skill level is too low. If he increased the search skill level, it would only increase the search radius. If an item was hidden in a secret location, he had to learn a higher ranked magic. This required one to be a magician class. Well, let's search again as we head back. Extract the rest of the bloodstones. Yes, Hyung Nim. Woojin was suspicious as to whether this dungeon was really a 4-star. The quality of the monster here was subpar. He had a method that could accurately measure this. Achievement points. Monsters of Rakui quality gave 3 achievement points. The bloodstone drop rate wasn't that high, but there were a lot of them. He thought it would be better to attack a spot where a lot of Rakwis spawned. I've excavated them all, Hyung Nim. Then let's search for the return stone as we head toward the station's entrance. The return stone doesn't always come out from the monster's corpse. It could be hidden in various locations. This was why Woojin retraced his steps, and he used the search magic again. Even as he approached the entrance, there was no trace of the return stone. He suddenly felt uneasy. If we ascend here, it'll be the entrance. Sungu mumbled to himself. When they climbed the stair, a portal emitting a red light formed in front of the barrier. It let out a strange sound. Woojin and Sungu looked at it with a queer expression on their faces. Seoul Station's Necromancer Chapter 27 to 4-star Dungeon, 2. TLN, regular chapter for next week. I'm releasing it early. The chapters seems to be getting longer. Cheeky smiley face, I'll have Dragon make it out in approximately 2 days. Please turn off the ad blockers if you're able to. Thanks and enjoy Tilda. Is that a portal? The color was different, but the portal made by the Dimensional Guardian had the same appearance. No. The size is a bit smaller. Suddenly, Sungu kneeled down in front of Woojin. I'm sorry, Hyung Nim. Why? This is my fault. When I bought my car yesterday, I became too excited. I was lax in my preliminary research of the dungeons. Woojin smirked. It's all right. Get up. At Woojin's generosity, Sungu stood up with a touched expression on his face. He threw away the excited feeling from his heart, then he put a tight rein over his feelings using his nervousness. I've lost my mind. Sungwoo looked back on the past 2 days, and he had to admit he had been too excited. Sungwoo normally attacked only 1-star dungeons. The first time he raided a 2-star dungeon he had almost died. He had acted like he had forgotten about that incident. If it wasn't for Woojin, he would have died on that day. Moreover, he wouldn't even be able to enter a 4-star dungeon or even a 3-star dungeon. For Sungwoo, a 4-star dungeon was basically a death trap. Even though he was coming to such a place, he hadn't done the proper research. He came here with light feet as if he was going to a picnic. He had gone crazy. He really had lost his mind. Moreover, the little amount of research he had done wasn't for this dungeon. It was for the previous dungeon. When they moved to a different dungeon, he should have done more research, and he should come up with another plan. He had been in too much of a rush. Now that I think about it, this situation is a bit weird. Even though they said this was a favor, it hadn't felt like they were pushing us to enter. I guess. Woojin also thought for a moment. Woojin didn't worry about the past events since it was a useless thing to do. Either they plan on screwing me over or they have a very high opinion of me. Woojin started thinking about the future instead of the past. Portal. Should he go in or not? He had searched all over the subway station, but he didn't find the return stone. His path was already chosen. He was going to choose the path with no worries. Let's go in. Yes, sir, Hyung Nim. Even if it is hell, he would follow Woojin. Sungwoo decided on the spot. He didn't care about the guilds. Woojin was his guiding light. He was his rescue rope. Jing. Woojin passed through portal. He didn't feel the strain he had felt when he returned to Earth from planet Alphen. The view in front of his eyes turned dizzy. Then his visual field cleared. It felt different from moving to a different dimension. It felt like he had passed through a sticky liquid. It was unpleasant and it made him feel dizzy. However, there weren't anything wrong with his body. Ah! Woojin was surprised at the scene he saw in front of his eyes. A jungle with thick brushes and large trees was sprawled out in front of him. Hi, Hyung Nim. At Sungwoo's shocked expression, Woojin turned to see a naked Sungwoo. At Sungwoo's appearance, he raised his hand, and it seemed he wasn't wearing anything either. It basically means only the body can go through the dimensional shift. They were basically thrown naked into the jungle. Woojin opened his achievement store, and he started to shop for clothes. Fortunately, basic clothes with no option cost less than 4 points. It was being sold at a cheap price. As if Sungwoo was a little bit embarrassed, he let out a fake cough. Sungwoo's gaze secretly dropped down towards the lower half of Woojin's body. Of course, Hyung Nim is great. TLN, he used a double entendre in Korean, degree. It felt like he had lost, but he didn't care. Of course, the Hyung Nim he admired was huge. Here. Wear this. Ah. Where did those clothes? For a brief moment, Sungwoo's eyes had been looking elsewhere as his heart was being stolen. TLN, there's no romantic connotation here. Woojin tossed him some clothes, and Sungwoo was surprised when he saw it. Of course, he had a large package, degree, and he could make clothes out of nothing. Woojin put his plain clothes on, then he carefully observed his surrounding. The portal was located on top of a stone altar, and there was a wide open space around it. The radius was about 5 meters. He looked north, south, west and east. However, the only thing he could see was trees. I guess we entered into the real 4-star dungeon. Woojin grinned. After he finished putting on his clothes, Sungwoo looked towards Woojin with a nervous expression. He had to be on his toes. Even a small mistake will get him killed. I'm going to prepare for a moment. Keep a lookout. Sungwoo immediately started to look around his surrounding. Woojin opened his achievement store, then he started getting ready for everything that could be thrown at him. He was level 10. He had his transfer bonus, so he would be rated higher than a normal level 10. However, this was a 4-star dungeon, so even he might be in danger. Necromancer's characteristics allowed one to deal with numerous low-level enemies with no problem. However, a Necromancer would have a hard time with a single powerful enemy. He didn't know which monsters would jump out at him, so he had to make preparations beforehand. Fortunately, he had hunted like a madman at the Rakui spawn site. He had taken a loss in how much bloodstones dropped, but his achievement points had steadily stacked up. So he had a lot in spare. Woojin bought all the small magic he would need for everyday life. Then he purchased several warrior class skills. Less than warrior's sense greater than. One could feel how strong one's opponent is. Less than warrior's rage greater than. Don't make the warrior angry. His anger allows him to use an unbelievable amount of power. Once he rages, his enemies will be slaughtered. Strength, agility, stamina stats are increased by 50%. Duration time, 30 seconds. Reuse cooldown time, 60 minutes. Less than jump greater than. The warrior from time to time shows an unbelievable jumping ability. Energy consumption, 1. Less than charge greater than. A warrior's charge is reckless. Anywhere he wants to be, he is already there. Energy consumption, 1. Less than strike greater than. Warrior's powerful blow. Plus 100% attack is added to basic attack. Energy consumption, 1. Warrior's sense and rage were passive skills. Moreover, he purchased jump, charge, and strike, which were active skills. All of them were class skills one could learn at level 10. If one wasn't a warrior, then one wouldn't be able to learn it. Alright. That should be enough. Now the leftover stat. Less than stat greater than. Strength, 30 agility, 30 stamina, 30 intelligence, 30. Magic, 25 vitality, 0 recovery, 10 healing, 10. Control, 34. Unassigned points, 0. Woojin has stacked 20 unassigned points as he leveled up to level 10. He put the points into magic and control. Then he bought several potions from the achievement store. He might run out of magic during a battle. If I want to work on my stat, then I'll have to increase my inventory. He decided to raise his stat through research. He needed various ingredients to make his drugs. Wu Jin's inventory was only 3 shelves. He bought 3-dimensional bags with 3 shelves each. The purchased dimensional bag immediately expanded his inventory into a space of 12 shelves. Less than you cannot purchase any more, greater than. If he wanted to expand his inventory again, then he had to buy different types of bag. It seemed the purchase limit for the same type of bag was 3. The 6-shelved bag costs 10,000 points. The price was too burdensome for him right now. He had to see the recipe, then he would know which ingredient items he needed together. Therefore, he bought all the reasonably priced recipes. I guess this much battle preparation should be enough. In the first place, necromancers used their summoned beings to fight their battle. They didn't put much importance on equipment. Their skills were more important. He had a lot more bonus points left, but he decided to save it. If the difficulty of the battles were too high, then the bonus points would be invaluable. It was basically Wu Jin's hidden trump card. Wu Jin used the rest of his points to purchase small items. He put it into his inventory, then he stood up. Wu Jin thought about summoning his steel staff, and it popped out into being in his grasp. Let's go. Yes, Hyung Nim. By the way, what? Is Hyung Him able to use the sub-dimension? Wu Jin suddenly produced clothes from thin air, and he had also taken out a staff. This was why he asked the question. If it wasn't a sub-dimension, then he had no explanation on how Wu Jin was able to do this. Yes. Huck. The sub-dimension artifacts were very expensive. Wu Jin wasn't using an artifact, so it meant he was using magic. One had to be rank B to use the sub-dimension magic. There weren't that many rank B roused in Korea. Hi, Hyung Nim. You are incredible. I admire you. Stop playing around, and hide your life signature. Yes, sir. Wu Jin took deliberate steps forward. From now on, they would be in the real 4-star dungeon. The detection skill he had steadily raised was level 3. Now it was possible for him to detect a monster's life signature from a distance. There are 3 of them in the front. I don't know what they are. What should we do? You hit them. When those bastards start attacking, just escape towards me or you'll be summoned back to Skeleton Soldier. He E8K. Sunggu had a vivid image of his body exploding and the Skeleton Soldier being summoned through him. Even if he died, he didn't want to die like that. You dork. Stop being so afraid. I'm just telling you to be on your toes. Nervousness was like a poison in battle. However, the day you don't feel nervous on the battlefield is probably the day you will die. This was more poignant in a battle with monsters. Whether you become the hunter or the hunted, it wasn't like the faces of a coin where it is one side or the other. Are you going to melt and become the water or freeze to become an ice? Wu Jin always looked relaxed, but his senses were wide open and it was on edge. Let it fly. Waru Rook. At Wu's command, Sunggu threw his fireball. His ability wasn't a bad one. If one compared one's long-range magic, Sunggu's fireball was stronger than any long-distance magic Wu Jin possessed. Puck. The fireball made impact, and it let out sparks to surrounding. There was a problem he hadn't had to worry about in the subway stations. A forest fire started to spread, and it accompanied a Qua. As it let out a terrible cry, an alligator-shaped monster named Crocodile showed up. It charged towards them like a soldier crawling underneath wires in training. Boom, boom. It busily moved its short legs quickly as it wiggled its body from side to side. It possessed prodigious strength and it broke all the small trees in the way of its charge. It was as large as a bull. Its saw-like teeth was as large as a kitchen knife. I'm fucked. At the incredible sense of danger, Sunggu couldn't even think about running away. At that moment, Wu Jin walked in front of him. Less than Crocodile LV 31 greater than. I guess this is the warrior's sense. Shook. In a flash, Wu Jin charged forward as he plowed through the brushes. He looked like an Olympic sprinter. No. The movement technique in Mahyup novels would probably look like this. Kwa Jik. It opened its mouth in a threatening manner. Wu Jin's jumped 3 meters in the air to avoid it. Sunggu's mouth dropped open. How could a person move like that? As he was falling, Wu Jin grabbed the steel staff with both hands, and he accurately planted it on the crocodile's head. The series of moves was so perfect that Sunggu couldn't help but admire it. If Wu Jin was a gymnast, he would have given him a perfect score. Sunggu saw Wu Jin's movement, and it was beautiful. Also, its leather is really tough. Fu U8K, Puck. Gurik. He was rough and violent. Asterisk. In front of Buchun City Hall Station's 11th exit. Minchin and Heeman continued to stare at Dungeon's barrier with a stunned expression on their face. The barrier hadn't dissipated, so it meant there were people still alive inside. How long will they last? Wouldn't they be able to at least defeat a crocodile? They'll probably be able to kill it. How about if they meet 3 of them? Wouldn't it be too difficult for them? Quote. Crocodile was a difficult monster to kill. Most physical attacks can damage the tough leather, and it also had a pretty good resistance to magic. Maybe if one had a sharp spear-like weapon, then one could probably attack the inside of its mouth, which was its weak point. However, 4-star dungeons didn't allow one to bring outside items. Only the roused and the items from the other world could move through the portal. The items in the survival kit were manufactured from ingredients brought back from the other side. They're fighting bare-handed, so even one crocodile might be too hard. Even if they're able to kill the monsters, food and water is a problem. Also, monsters weren't the only danger present. Even if there were no monsters, one was dropped bare naked in the middle of an Amazon forest. The probability of a human surviving there dropped sharply. Phew. Minchen and Heeman could only let out a sigh when they felt the guilt about getting innocent people killed. Asterisk. Sizzle sizzle. Sungdu ate the well-cooked skewer of meat, and his eyes turned round. Hyung Nim. This taste is to die for. Alligators taste great if you tenderize the meat. You are amazing, Hyung Nim. In Sungdu's eye, Woojin was basically a godlike figure. He didn't know when he had the time to pack everything, but he took out a sharp cooking knife from inside the sub-dimension. He also took out pots and other cooking utensils. Woojin cut the meat, and he pierced it with wooden skewers. A little bit of salt was sprinkled before they cooked it over the fire, and the taste was fantastic. Woojin's omniscience was endless. He took out an oak cask, and he even brought out some beer. He brought alcohol to a dungeon. Dude, try this out. Crocodile skewers go great as side dish with the beer. Kaya. This is so delicious. Sungdu raised both his thumbs. The beer had a much deeper taste than the imported beers. Sungdu wasn't proficient at tasting alcohol, but even he fell in love with it. Woojin was in a good mood when he was able to taste the Planet Alphen's beer he had purchased from the achievement store. He thought he would never be able to enjoy this taste again. Eat a lot. This place is large, and we have to search all of it. Yes, Hyung Nim. They didn't have any information regarding the return stone, so they had to search the entire jungle. However, Woojin was in a good mood since a single crocodile gave 30 achievement points. It was 10 times the point he made from killing the Rakwis. I guess I'll level up a little bit. Woojin grinned as he thought about the vast jungle. Seoul Station's Necromancer Chapter 28, same place. Chapter 28, same place. TLN, this is a sponsored chapter. Thank you for the donation, John. Please turn off the ad blockers if you're able to. Thank you and enjoy Tilda. How long would this feeling of anxiety continue? Heeman had been feeling it for about 30 minutes and Minchen felt it for no more than 40 minutes. The two of them waited for the barrier to disappear. At the very least, they wanted to see the moment when the two had died as a courtesy. Team leader. These guys are lasting quite a while. I guess so. If they lasted this long, doesn't it confirm they were able to survive in the jungle? I guess so. Maybe they might clear it. At Heeman's hopeful words, Minchen's face turned bright for a moment. However, his face turned sullen soon. He is a necromancer, so he'll have his summoned beings. Even if he was able to defeat the crocodile using his summoned being as bait, he won't be able to escape the swamps. When you say the swamps. In various parts of the jungle, large swamps had formed, and the swamp was basically a death trap for close-range fighters. The swamps limited one's movement, and there were two types of monsters that spawned at the swamps. The Fuko monkeys and swamp anacondas. Fuko monkeys threw a very hard fruit named Fuko at their opponents, and it could deal quite a lot of damage. If one took a wrong blow to the head, then one would be in danger of dying. It was hard to move in the swamps, so the only way to attack was using long-range magic. Minchen had too little information on the two. He knew the roused named Hong Sungdu had a flame ability. However, Fuko monkeys attacked in packs with at least 10 members. It wasn't something a single person could deal with. Moreover, when one is busy dealing with the Fuko monkeys, the large anacondas would silently approach and attack. One would be too exhausted to fend it off. Phew. That sounds difficult. It is difficult. When one attacked a 4-star dungeon, several types of abilities were needed. This was why a team was always formed. Minchana and Heeman went back to watching the barrier with dark expression on their faces. Asterisk. HWA Ru Rook, boom. Several dozen fireballs flew towards the branches. Ooh kiki. The surprised monkeys madly dodged the fireballs. During all of this, ice arrows flew in, and it struck the body of the monkey. It made their movements sluggish. Su H8K. Boom. Ki. While the forest was burning up, an electrical attack came flying towards the monkeys. Pa Geek. Gweek. Woojin was radiant as he saw the monkeys falling like leaves. Coo ha ha ha. Wipe them all out. Quote. Sungdu's face was livid with horror as he looked at the horrible scene. HWA Ru Rook. The forest was burning. If this was Earth instead of a dungeon, this event would have been the headline in the media. Woojin already had 40 skeleton magicians by his side. Some were shooting fireballs and some were sending out ice arrows. The rest were using electricity magic. At least he was comforted by the fact that his fireballs was a bit stronger than the skeleton magician's fireballs. Sungdu had never seen such a violent and brutish hunting method. Woojin had a retinue of skeleton magicians, and they were burning and destroying the entire jungle. It was an indiscriminate massacre. It was a banquet of magic. HWA Ru Rook, poo poo pwing. Kekeke. I leveled up again. Ooh ha ha. Quote. Sungdu wondered if Woojin had lost his mind. It seemed his mood was elevated to another level. It didn't suit a person who was madly destroying the jungle. Sungdu had never seen Woojin be in a better mood. No, this was the most excited he had seen Woojin be. When Woojin leveled up, he put the 10 bonus stat points into magic and control. He invested 5 points each. Now, come new recruits. At Woojin's call, 5 dead monkey corpses exploded, and new skeleton magicians were added to his troops. Dual class is fucking awesome. Woojin got a taste of a new world when he turned from level 10 to level 11. Every time he leveled up, he received 10 bonus stat instead of 5. The bonus stat had doubled. Even the bonus skill point had increased from 1 to 2 points. He thought it was a setup that allowed him to develop both the warrior and necromancer class at the same time. However, Woojin didn't even bother with the stat and skills for the warrior class. He put all the points into control and magic. His current level was 14. As a bonus, he had received 40 stat points. He put most of it into control and magic. He also put several points into recovery, which helped his magic recover. Magic, 40 recovery, 14 control, 55. As the number of skeleton magicians increased around Woojin, the forest was destroyed at a high pace. The monsters were too busy running away. Less than achievement plus 25, achievement plus 23, greater than. Every time Woojin killed one Fuko monkey, he yelled out in joy as he calculated the achievement points. In the 3-star dungeon, he had only received 3 achievement points, because the hunting ground didn't suit his ability. Woojin's current level was 14, but the transfer bonus and other skills basically meant he could be seen as a level 40. Woojin swept everything before him as he advanced. From the rear, consecutive magic blasts flew up like rocket launchers, and it landed in the forest. The only thing left was for the forest to burn. Asterisk. Who ordered the jjajangmyeon? TLN, noodle plus black bean paste plus veggie, meat. Ah, over here. Hamain took the 2 bowls of jjajang from the delivery man, then he approached Minchin, who was sitting on the subway station stairs. The dungeon employee and the staff in charge went to a nearby restaurant to eat a meal. Team leader. Our dinner is here. I want ganjajang. TLN, same as jjajangmyeon but the sauce is thicker. This restaurant's jjajang is tastier. You bugger. This is the first time you're ordering from this place. Quote. Ah phew. Whatever. Let's just eat. Minchin took the jjajangmyeon, and he mixed it. He asked a question as he put a mouthful of the noodle in his mouth. How long has it been? 4 hours has passed. So, 16 hours. The structure of the 4-star dungeon wasn't the only thing unique about it. The time there was 4 times faster than the real time. They had already spent over 16 hours inside the dungeon. The dungeon monsters quickly realized if there was an intruder. The monsters slowly converged on the intruders, so hiding wasn't an option. One could hide for a short amount of time, but it was almost impossible for one to hide from the monsters for 16 hours. They probably came across a swamp by now. However, we don't really have much information about their abilities. That's true. Ah. Then don't we have to worry about them coming back alive? We were the one who put them in danger. Mikan shook his head at Hemon's worry. It's already been 16 hours, so they're probably starving by now. How well do you think they'll know about the ecosystem over there? The plants, animals and bugs aren't like the ones found on Earth. They're all very different. Geez. If they mistakenly eat a poisonous plant. It's the end of the road. Maybe it was because of the words he were mumbling, but he lost the taste for his food. In the future, don't order from here. Yes. Asterisk. The jungle was burned to the ground. In the open space, Woojin was roasting something on a stick over the campfire. Chi. From the surrounding, Sunggu had gathered fruits and mushrooms that wasn't damaged by fire. Hyung Nim. I picked these up. Ah, well done. Woojin picked up the fruits brought to him by Sunggu. He picked each up one by one. You can eat this if you peel the skin. You can't eat this. It's poisonous. This one is also poisonous, but we can eat it if we cook it over the fire. Woojin gave an explanation to Sunggu. Sunggu feverishly listened to Woojin like a student who was going to take the college entrance exam soon. The only regret Sunggu had was the lack of notebooks. He wanted to write all of this down. Hyung Nim. How are you so knowledgeable about this? Ah, that is. Of course, he was knowledgeable about it. This place was basically like a mixture of the ecosystem and neighborhood he had lived at for 20 years. Well, why don't you just listen without saying anything? I'm sorry, Hyung Nim. I won't ask about it again. Go cut some of that grass over there. We can crush it into a paste. It tastes fantastic when you slather it on the meat. Yes, sir, so what's the menu this time? Snake meat. It's fantastic. Also, I'm getting tired of eating only meat. Let's eat some roasted mushroom. Kaya. My mouth is already watering. To his surprise, everything Woojin cooked was very tasty. Sunggu was really looking forward to it. Asterisk. Mikan favored the taste of ganjajang, but he still emptied the whole bowl. The current time was 7:45. Woojin and Sunggu had already been in the dungeon for 4 hours and 20 minutes. Heman went to fetch a blanket, and he gave it to Minchin. Team leader. The day is getting cold. Yeah, thanks. So, team leader, what happens if we aren't able to scout Mr. Woojin and Mr. Sunggu? What do you think? We can only begrudgingly let them go. Don't we need to report it to the president? It's already been sent. He was apathetic. What? Hemon's eyes became round. If it wasn't an order from the president, then why were they putting so much effort into this venture? He had already ordered the employee to raise Kang Woojin to rank C and Hong Sunggu to rank D. The newly issued roused card had already been delivered to Minchin's hand. If he was to be blunt, it basically meant if those two died then their work would be much cleaner. They would lament the fact that they weren't able to rope the two into the guild, but the consequence would end there. The complication would arise if those two came back alive, and they took issue with what happened. Hey, Heman. Yes, team leader. You know about me. In the past 5 years, my eyes have never deceived me. It makes sense. Team leader's evaluation of others had always been on point. Minchin had been involved in dungeon-related work since the dungeon shock. He was a veteran. He wasn't a founding member of the Hammer Guild, but the work he had done for the guild was quite illustrious. Didn't team leader discover Park Jin-woo? Hammer Guild had 2 ranked aroused. One of them was Park Jin-woo. Young Minchin had recognized his potential, and he had roped him into the Hammer Guild. I get a powerful feeling from that bastard, Woojin. Does that mean he has a similar potential? If the roused had potential, the guild would bend over backwards to help the person grow rapidly. Heman had asked if Woojin had as much potential as Park Jin-woo. Heman shook his head. I have a feeling he has more. Quote. Exclamation mark quote. That is why I don't want to lose him. Young Minchin was telling the truth. He felt a strong sensation coming from Kang Woojin. It didn't feel like a sandalwood being fragrant even in seed leaf. TLN, idiom, it was much more than that. It felt like he was looking at a large tree. This is why I want him to come back alive. I don't care even if he doesn't join the Hammer Guild. If we lose aroused like that, then it would be a loss for humanity. Team leader. Heeman had to look at his boss, Minchin, in a new light. Usually he acted like an asshole, but today why was he looking so cool? No, he really looked cool. We could pray together, team leader. I'm sure they will come back alive. It'll be tough. Quote. Question mark quote. Those bastards guarding the return stone are really difficult opponents. Quote. Exclamation mark quote. Of course, he knew that. That is why he said they should pray for their safe return. They'll eventually die. Quote. Quote. Weren't you hoping to see them come back alive? He took back the sentiment. If he wasn't his team leader, he would have hit him. Heeman berated himself for thinking even for a brief moment that his team leader was cool. Asterisk. Hyung Nim. The return stone is over there. After burning down the entire jungle, Woojin stepped forward to use his search magic. The return stone was in the middle of a large open space, and it was floating on top of an altar. At the thought of being able to escape this dungeon fraught with danger, Sungdu was about to run towards it. Woojin roughly held him back. Are you 8K? Sungdu fell backwards after the back of his neck was grabbed. Before Sungdu could turn to ask the question, why, the ground he stepped on collapsed on itself. A cloud of dust rose into the air, and he could see a trap with bamboo spears on the bottom. Are you 8K? If he had taken one more step, then he would have died. Sungdu's heart flipped in his chest. He was about to express his thanks, but Woojin was staring at something with a serious expression on his face. When Sungdu saw the beings that showed up, he lost the words he was about to say. Seoul Station's Necromancer Chapter 29, Same Place, 2. Chapter 29 Same Place, 2. TLN, this is a sponsored chapter. Thank you John and Renee for the donation. I'll try to release Dragon Macon as soon as I can. Please turn off the ad blockers if you're able to. Thank you Tilda. This is quite unexpected. Woojin frowned as he saw the figures of about 20 monsters. Less than LV41 Orc Warrior greater than. Less than LV45 Orc Shaman greater than. He would have never dreamed orcs would show up here. Their level was visible through the warrior's sense, and it was fairly high. He had to assume their actual fighting power was much higher. These bastards were analogous to humans. When the monsters of this race gather in a group, they were able to work synergistically. Rakur Ri Mak 2, Ri Kyo Alphan. Sungdu was surprised when bizarre words started to flow out from Woojin's mouth. Hi, Hyung Nim. Sungdu wasn't the only one who was surprised. The orcs were surprised, and they started to murmur to each other. How can a human from Earth speak the language of the orcs? Woojin made a bitter laugh. Orc were of a similar race. They were one of the tribes that made up Alphan's society. Woojin wondered how these orcs came to be in this dungeon. Weren't the dungeons a route being used by Tranet to invade Earth? Why are the Alphans orcs here on Earth? When Woojin replied in similar words to their question, a large orc stepped forward. Who are you? How come a human from Earth knows the Alphans orc language? That's not important. I'm asking where you were in this place. We lost our base. Woojin was surprised at the orc's words. Does that mean Alphan was taken by Tranet? The orc turned silent at Woojin's words. How could the human from Earth know so much about matters regarding Alphan? That's right. One piece of the counterweight disappeared, and Tranet became the owner of everything. We are able to exist here after we made a contract with Tranet. Contract. Earth will become our new base. The invasion of Earth. Woojin frowned. It was a bullshit contract. Earth didn't belong to Tranet in the first place. Do they want to die? How dare they come here? When Woojin spoke in Korean, Sungdu asked with a dumbfounded expression on his face. Hyung Nim. Are you okay? What? I thought Hyung Nim was speaking in tongues. Sungdu had genuinely been worried. Woojin had suddenly let out guttural sounds. Sungdu's concern seeped with loyalty, and it awakened Woojin's senses. Less than Warrior's Rage has been activated, greater than. Less than Variable Stats has been elevated. Duration time 29, 28, greater than. Phew. So this is what rage is. Woojin bottled up his anger, then he looked at the orcs. He had to direct his anger towards the orcs instead of Sungdu. After they lost their homeland, they had crawled into someone else's land. Moreover, they were trying to take it away. I'm not afraid of a team battle. If it was a team battle, he was confident he wouldn't lose. Bombard them. At Woojin's words, the skeleton magicians on standby started to bombard the orcs with each of their own magic. Shoo, poo poo pooing. The fire, ice and electricity magic flew like raining arrows toward the orc's position, and it scorched the earth. After a moment of disturbance, the cloud of dust subsided, and Sungdu had a shocked expression at what he saw. Those bastards are unscathed. The orc shaman had used a barrier magic to protect themselves. Woojin grinned. Whether it was the orcs or whatever else, he wouldn't allow him to take Earth while he was here. Let's see if they could hold out against this. If his magic wasn't working, then he just had to increase their power. Woojin opened the skill window, and he immediately raised the level of skeleton magicians to 10. Keek. The appearance of the skeleton magicians started to change. A black air current started to form around their emaciated bodies, and it materialized into a black robe. If they stood still, one could mistake them for people with hood over their head. The hands made out of the emaciated bones thrust out from between the robes. Then a light 2 times the size of the previous one formed to make magic. Shoot them. At Woojin's command, magic that can't, even compared to the ones before, started to rain down on the orcs. HWA Ru Rook, Puing. Zerz Ed UH Suing, Pa Ji Jeek. When the fireball made contact, it exploded. The ice froze its surrounding. The strengthened electric shock was the most effective against the orcs, since the orcs used tempered iron as weapons. Brave warriors. Charge. Beat them before they charge. Shoo 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 shook. At Woojin's command, the skeleton magicians let out consecutive magic spells. When their level increased, the range, shooting rate and power of the magic had increased. The orcs had been a good distance away. While they were charging towards Woojin, over half of them had died. When the orcs closed the distance, Woojin immediately cancelled the summons for 40 skeleton magicians. Wah Ruru. Their body broke down, and the pile of bones was created. Woojin grinned. Let's change second round into a different event. He used the bones as medium to summon the skeleton soldiers. Keek. His 40 points of magic would all be used up, but he didn't care. He had other methods he could use. He wasn't only about the magic. Well, let's go. Kekeke. Woojin lifted his steel staff, and he charged. The skeleton soldiers quickly moved behind him. The orcs' attacks were very strong. The skeleton soldiers were weak in endurance, so their skulls were broken after a couple blows. However, Woojin didn't care. Every time the orc brought down a skeleton soldier, it got injured. The next skeleton soldier would also wound the orc again as it fell. The orc couldn't face a skeleton soldier for the 3rd time. It was killed after being pierced by a skeleton soldier's sword. No matter how brave the orc warriors were, they couldn't stand up against superior numbers. Woojin killed the last remaining orc. He crushed the orc shaman's skull, then he let out a sigh. Maybe humans might show up in dungeons soon. Hyung Nim. You're even good at telling jokes. After the battle ended, Sungu was in a familiar territory. He quickly looted the items used by the orcs. Asterisk. In front of Bucheon City Hall Station's 11th exit. Kim Heeman scratched his cheeks. Team leader. Isn't this getting pretty serious? How long has it been? It's been 6 hours and 20 minutes. At Hemon's words, Mihin's expression also turned serious. The normal clear time for a 4-star dungeon was 4 hours. That meant 20 hours had passed within the dungeon. The 2 of them had already spent 25 hours 20 minutes inside the dungeon. This meant they had survived for over a day within the dungeon. Team leader. The barrier. Young Mikan gulped as he saw the barrier disintegrate. Come out. Please come out alive. He yelled those words inside, but he didn't see any changes at the bottom of the stairs. When he let out a small sigh, he heard the sound of footsteps on the stairs. Maybe I should take a cart next time. Woojin and Sungu complained as they carried up the leather armors and weapons worn by the orcs. They would bring up a lot of stuff. See, congratulations on your safe return. Minchin ran down the stairs, and he was emotional as he grabbed Woojin. Woojin stared back at him with a blank face. Why are you making such a fuss? What? Just go down and bring those stuff up. Woojin and Segu had gathered a massive amount of loot. They had 2 full bags of bloodstones, and the size of the bloodstones couldn't even be compared to the ones in the lower dungeons. Moreover, the equipment worn by the orcs were quite valuable. They also brought iron weapons, animal leathers, and rough cloths. It was items that could be purchased on Earth. However, these were valuable since it could pass through the portals. Any roused could enter the low-ranked dungeons. It was possible for them to take modern items. Those dungeons were basically neutral territories. However, the higher-ranked dungeons only allowed the roused to come across the portal. Modern items were useless. When Woojin returned to the other side of the portal after obtaining the return stone, his clothes, hand phone and bloodstone bags were strewn all over the floor. They had to bring those items out too with the loot. With the help of Minchin, Woojin and Sungu were sorting the loot. You were saying I could exchange the bloodstones at the exchange store, but it is up to us to sell the other items. Yes. That's correct. Wait a moment. Minchin opened the sports bag, and he took out a scanner. He brought it over the items as if he was scanning it. They are all normal items. There are no artifacts. However, these items came out the dungeon, so they should be quite valuable. So where do I go to sell this? Usually the support division of the guilds takes care of it. Mikan stopped speaking, and he looked at Woojin to see how he responded. Would it be okay for him to talk about it? Well, if you enter a guild, then the support division will take care of these minor tasks. It does sound convenient. Why don't you enter into our guild? I promise we will give you the best treatment. That's all right. Why don't Uncle's guild buy some of this stuff? It'll be inconvenient for me to carry these around. Quote. Mikan bought all the loot Woojin had brought. He also gave a good price on it. $110,000. The profit here isn't a great. I guess so. However, wasn't it a bit easier than before? Sungu knew what Woojin was getting at. At the Rakui spawn site, he was busy extracting the bloodstones, so this was a bit easier for Sungu. Woojin also never felt he was in danger at that place. However, if he thought about the profit in terms of how much they made per hour, the 3-star dungeons was a better option. Quote. The gears inside Young Minchin's mind started to spin quickly. By looking at Woojin and Segu's reaction, it seemed they had never really been in danger inside this dungeon. Maybe he is rank A. Minchin felt his heart pound. If it was possible, he wanted to accompany Woojin into the dungeon. He wanted to see with his own eyes as to how he attacked the dungeon. This particular roused had only attacked the dungeons on 3 occasions, yet he shook Minchin's heart. This was the first time he had felt this way. Please give me your phone number. No. Please give it to me. You are going to bother me if I do. Quote. Of course. Minchen wasn't going to lose the roust he had an eye on. However, Woojin was a tough cookie. He had given a lot of help to Woojin and Sunggu even though they weren't members of his guild. However, he didn't want to lord it over them. It seemed Woojin didn't feel thankful towards him. It felt like his treatment of Woojin was considered as a matter of course. Let's coincidentally meet again next time. Quote. When the money was deposited, Woojin brushed himself off, and he stood up. Minchen didn't have any reason he could use to stop him. I'll see you out. Ah, it's all right. Haha. I insist. Let's go. Hamen followed after the two, and he saw him off from the parking lot. Minchen felt dejected as he sat down. Soon, Heeman hurriedly came running back. Team leader. I got it. What did you get? His phone number. Minga's eyes turned round, and he looked at the phone number in Heeman's grasp. Kang Woojin 01012XX4X. Are you sure this isn't a fake number? No. I called it up. Huh. If he was going to give it away so easily, then why did he play so hard to get? I'm not sure. Minchen frowned. He couldn't make heads or tails of this situation. Previously, he acted like he would reject joining the guild, yet his action right now left some room for doubt. It seems he isn't entirely opposed to joining the guild. Is he some kind of an expert in negotiations? Mikan thought Woojin was a 24-year-old young man, who was short on experience in society. He had to revise this opinion. After thinking for a long time, Minchen suddenly asked a question. What did you say that convinced him to give you his number? I just said I wanted to have some soju with him next time. Quote. Ha. He had no idea what was going on inside of Wuane. Seoul Station's Necromancer Chapter 30, same place, 3. TLN, this is a sponsored chapter. The queue is cleared. Thank you for the donation, Rene. Next week regular chapter will be Elquinus and Dragon Maker Nor SSN. I think I mistranslated the title, so I'll go back and change it. Please turn off the ad blockers if you're able to. Thank you and enjoy Tilda. Inside Sunggu's car. Ha. I guess crocodile leather sells for a high price. I guess so. Woojin looked through the presents given by Minchen. Among the several items, he was looking at the Guchun City Hall subway station's 11th exit guidebook. It listed which monsters were present in the dungeon, and the pattern they showed up in. It also listed the vulnerable points. There were a variety of information that were essential in attacking the dungeon. It listed how much a part of a monster could be sold for. It also described the valuable plants and what types of valuable ores could be found there. These were easily found items. Woojin hadn't known it, but there was a robust market for these items in this reality. Well, it's too bad, but I can't do anything about it now. Woojin knew he hadn't been able to bring out a lot of things, but he didn't feel any regret over it. Also, in the future, he didn't have to think about gathering all those items by himself. Hey Sunggu. You take care of it next time. Yes. Sunggu would rather excavate the bloodstones. If he had to dismember monsters' corpses to bring the valuable parts, it was a little bit. My dream of becoming a flame magician. The desire to advance his ability was as strong as the desire to make money. He really respected the high-ranked roused. After meeting Woojin, Sunggu had more occasion to use the butcher knife instead of using his flame magic. He had become a master at extracting bloodstones, but his flame ability was in a standstill. However, he had made a contract, so he planned on being faithful to his job as a manager for 1 year. The amount of money he made was unimaginably larger than before. He would steadily save the money, then he'll buy a magic scroll to raise his ability. By the way, Hyung Nim. What? Woojin's eyes were glued to the guidebook, and he replied in a distracted manner. So why did you give your phone number to Assistant Manager Kim? He said he wanted to have some soju with me. Was it that simple? Is he trying to act heroic? Maybe he is Stu. No. Hyung Nim isn't like that. Since Assistant Manager Kim knows your number, doesn't that mean Team Leader Young will also know your phone number? He'll find out about it. Then why did you give it to him? Well, why not? Woojin turned his head to look at Sunggu. Woojin answered in such a dignified manner that Sunggu thought back to see if he asked the wrong question. Hyung Nim. Are you going to join a guild? No. I thought you didn't like being bothered. That Team Leader Young seemed like a pretty persistent person. Woojin grinned. Let me ask you this. After you block spam mails, does the spam mails stop coming? It shows up even if it is blocked. No. We just need to show moderate amount of interest. Then they'll introduce us to dungeons like today, and they'll give us presents. How great would that be? He was enjoying this. Of course, Hyung Nim's heart is really. If it's inside the dungeon, do you think he will follow in after me? How about when I'm not in the dungeon? I don't have anything else to do. I have a lot of time on my hand. Quote. He'll eventually give up after he gets tired. Evil. Sunggu grabbed the steering wheel in silence. Woojin was absent-mindedly looking out the window when his eyes widened. Isn't the Jaemin? What? That's the student living with Hyung Nim. Yeah. Pull your car alongside him. Sunggu's car stopped next to the sidewalk. Woojin got out of the passenger seat, then he yelled as if he was glad to see Jaemin. Jaemin. Jaemin was taken aback. He had come out near the school to eat out with his sister. He saw Woojin wave at him with a bright smile. Jaemin unconsciously lowered his head. Hello, Hyung. Asterisk. Top floor of the Hammer Guild. One of the 10 rank aroused in Korea was here. Guild Master Park Sang-go. The intercom placed behind his desk's nameplate rang. His secretary's voice came out when he pressed the button. President. The third support team leader is here for a visit. Let him in. B. The intercom turned off, then the door opened soon after. The passionate support team leader was the same age as him. He was 35 years old. He had joined the Hammer Guild late, but he had made significant contributions in helping the Hammer Guild expand. He managed the lower dungeon, which were the main source of funds for the guild, with a steady hand. He also had the ability to find talented prospects, so he stood out from others in the guild. President. I'm here to give my scouting progress report. It is about Kang Woojin, who I have reported to you before. Have you succeeded? Not yet. Didn't I give you all jurisdiction regarding this matter? You don't have to give me progress reports. Perhaps, your negotiation isn't going well. It would have been great if there had been an actual negotiation. The problem was Woojin didn't even think about negotiating. If Team Leader Jung is keeping tabs on him, then I don't care about how much he wants. I'll leave it up to your discretion. Scout him if you want. You will have to settle a matter regarding him. Woojin was already able to make a lot of money. No, he had found an amazing hunting method that allowed him to make as much money in the 3-star dungeon as the 4-star dungeon. He needed something more than money to entice him. Park Sang-go looked at the document he had to sign, and he frowned. Do we really need to give him the position of Vice President? Does he really have that much worth? Ha! The Vice President seat is no joke. Park Sang-go looked through the other files. Kang Woojin's background was written in detail. He returned after he went missing for 5 years. As soon as he came back, he went to the 2-star dungeon once and 3-star dungeon once. Today, he completed a 4-star dungeon once. Yes. I predict he is aroused, possessing a very outstanding ability. Have you seen it? What? I said have you seen it? I haven't seen it yet, but my prediction. Park Sang-go threw the documents, then he leaned back to bury his body into his chair's backrest. Look here. Team Leader Jung. Yes, President. They were of the same age, but there was a large gulf between the boss and a subordinate inside the company. Minchin had the better educational background, but the gap between them was large. It was like the difference between a roused and a civilian. If he was really the competent, then why would I spare the cost of giving the Vice President seat? However, this is laughable. The position of Vice President in the Hammer Guild isn't some part-time job. This guy is a baby who only cleared the dungeons 3 times. He isn't a known quantity. How can we give him the position solely based on potential? There were additional problems. Moreover, his potential is based only on team leader's hunch. Boo Duk. Jung Minchin gritted his teeth. He had brought in numerous outstanding individuals based on his hunch. Hammer Guild was one step in front of the other guilds in terms of finding talents, and Minchin had a lot to do with it. He has to display his potential in a tangible way. If that isn't possible, find out about his abilities. Then I will be able to decide if he is worth the investment the guild will have to put out for him. How long did you expect us to make an investment solely on Team Leader Jung's hunch? It isn't like you were successful every single time. He was right. Numerous roused were brought in at Jung Minchin's strong assertion, and there were a lot of them who hadn't reached their potential yet. Still, if the President would just think of all the times they made a profit, this level of investment shouldn't be too much. We shouldn't throw around the Vice President seat easily. Everywhere we go people will look down on us. It'll bring down the Hammer Guild's prestige. Do you understand? Yes. B. The intercom rang just in time. He pressed the button and his secretary's voice leaked out. President. The Vice President is here for a visit. Vice President Park Jin-woo. He was the greatest talent found by Team Leader Jung Minchin. He was 27 years old with a handsome face. Recently, he made a lot of appearances on TV, so he was as popular as an entertainer. He was also the only other rank aroused in the Hammer Guild aside from the President. His worth to the guild didn't even need an explanation. Park Jin-woo was tall, and he was wearing a suit. When he opened the President's door to come in, he came face to face with Team Leader Jung Minchin. Jin-woo's eyes became round, and he smiled as he gave his greeting. Ah, Team Leader Jung was here. Yes. Well, please go have your conversation with him. In the past, he had merely been a cub when Minchin had found. However, he was a Vice President now. His station was markedly different from the past. Jung Minchin walked past him with a rigid expression, and Park Jin-woo shrugged his shoulders. By looking at this mood, it seemed he was chewed out by the President again. Still, he had recognized Park Jin-woo during his noob roused days. Minchin had also introduced him to the Hammer Guild, so he had an attachment towards him. What's going on with Team Leader? Chet. I don't know. He saw some Necromancer, and he wanted to give the guy one of the Vice President seat. Park Jin-woo laughed at the annoyed words of the President. If Team Leader Jung is advocating for him, then don't we have to try to catch him no matter what? What do you mean catch him no matter what? I think the guy's eyes have deteriorated. Every kid he brings in are mediocre now. Recently, the prospects found by Team Leader Jung Minchin was very mediocre. They were talented, but they didn't develop fast enough. The fact that Team Leader Jung was able to recognize your talent was pure luck. Hey. Still, don't be too harsh on him. Chet. Alright. Anyways, how was your work in the US? Park Jin-woo. He had the wholehearted support of the guild, since he was rank aroused. He was also the representative of the Hammer Guild, so he had been elevated to the position of Vice President. The guild conference opened in the US. As the representative for the Hammer Guild, he had to participate in it. He had just returned from New York. Park Jin-woo's expression turned serious. I looked at the surrounding moods, and I think the rumor is correct. It's true. President Park Sang-go also put on a serious expression. There was a very weird rumor circulating between guilds that started not too long ago. He had sent the Vice President to the conference to confirm whether if the rumor was true. In your opinion, who procured it? I think it's the Titans. The Titans. There were several large guilds in the US, but if one had to choose the best, one would pick the Titan. It was an obvious choice. If the rumor was true, then the possibility of the Titan having the person was highly probable. A person who came out of a dungeon. Park Sang-go's face had turned serious. Should he call that person an alien? Should he call the person a new species? He hadn't seen this person, so he had nothing to say. No. It might be a rumor made up by Titan in the first place. The absolute truth would probably only be known to the top executive of the Titans. If the rumor was true, this would be the first such instance since the dungeons formed 5 years ago. Asterisk. In the heart of Manhattan, a limousine parked in front of a building that rose into the sky in an imposing manner. People who looked like security surrounded the car. They quickly moved to open the trunk and they took out a wheelchair. The limousine's door opened, and a brown-haired middle-aged woman moved to the wheelchair. A blonde beauty in a tidy outfit approached her with a smile on her face. Mrs. Hamilton. Was there any discomfort in coming here? Discomfort. This is the first time I've travelled in such luxury. She had flown here by plane for 6 hours. However, there wasn't a single moment in the journey where she felt discomfort. Thank you for accepting our guild's request. It's no problem. If someone needs my help, I'll most definitely agree to it. Mrs. Hamilton was America's most respected psychotherapist. With guidance from the blonde beauty, they headed towards the top floor of the guild. Mrs. Hamilton. Before you meet the patient, you will have to sign this contract. The contract given to her by the blonde beauty was a commonly seen contract. It was a non-disclosure agreement. Many wealthy individuals were her regular customers, so she was used to seeing such agreements as their psychotherapist. When she signed the contract, the blonde beauty guided her to the patient's room. She was handed a concise summary of her patient. Hamilton asked in confusion as she read it. Does she have global aphasia? Yes. Mrs. Hamilton didn't ask any more about the patient's diagnosis. The file only had information regarding the symptoms exhibited by the patient. It didn't have any personal information on it. She doesn't have any name, birthplace, age or anything. The blonde beauty nodded her head. She was rescued from a dungeon. Quote. Your job is to find her voice again, Mrs. Hamilton. It is your job to fill the empty personal information of the patient. The beautiful blonde secretary led Mrs. Hamilton to a room. When she entered the room after opening the door, she couldn't help but yell in surprise. Oh my God. She had never seen such a beauty in her life. Even as a fellow woman, her almost unrealistic beauty surprised Mrs. Hamilton. As befitting a 5-star hotel, the room was decorated in an extravagant manner. However, it didn't even register in her eyes. She could only look at her. She was simply a mysterious beauty with unearthly beauty. Moreover, she also gave off an unearthly feeling. For a woman, who was rescued from a dungeon, her face was too peaceful. Physiotherapist Hamilton quietly approached her in the wheelchair. The secretary stood by her side as she looked on. After calming herself a little bit, Mrs. Hamilton started speaking towards the unidentified beauty. While Hamilton was calming down, the unidentified beauty had put on a faint smile, and it made her look very alien. Hello. My name is Mrs. Hamilton. The beauty didn't respond at all to her gentle greeting. She couldn't speak, but her eyes was letting out a light as if she was yearning for something. If it's too difficult, you don't have to speak. Do you want to write to me? Or you could draw some pictures. As if they had already tried this, the table next to them had a paper and pen on top of it. Hamilton smiled as she started to draw a picture first. She just had to go slow. Melodies doesn't suddenly get better in an instant. She couldn't suddenly make a hole through the barrier in her heart. She can only get closer to her a little bit at a time. The most important thing was always having sincerity in one's heart. I'm ready. I want to understand you. Can you hear me? What? Hamilton was surprised when a clear voice rang out inside her head. She turned to look at the secretary. Did you just hear someone speak? What? I didn't hear anything. Your trust allowed you to receive my voice. Hamilton's surprise-filled eyes turned towards the unidentified beauty. It was as if the light in her eyes was speaking to her. It was as if that was her voice. I can hear you. I guess my God hasn't abandoned me yet. My God. The beauty's lips hadn't moved yet. She was sure the woman was speaking to her. Her voice was clearly heard by Hamilton's ears. May you grant me my request? How are you able to speak to me? Who are you? How can this be? The confused secretary looked at the flustered Hamilton, who was talking to herself. She couldn't hear the patient's voice at all. Only Mrs. Hamilton was able to hear her voice. I've been rude. She had abruptly asked for a request. The unidentified beauty slowly stood up from her bed. With an elegant movement, she bowed. When Mrs. Hamilton saw this, she could only look on dumbfoundedly. I am Alphan's seventh highest. I am the mother of the land. I am the divine wing, and the voice of Arya. My name is Melody. My God. She was the holy priestess of the Church of Arya. Her name was Melody. She had taken her first step on earth.